season. Today on So Perfect, my guest, Kenneth King, will show us how to make the pattern. Welcome to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betzina. If you thought that slipcovers were a thing of the past, think again. They're a great way to give the room a whole new look. And today my guest, Kenneth King, who does incredible evening wear, is here to show us how to make slipcovers. Welcome to the show, Kenneth.
Thank you.
What are you doing making slipcovers? You do terrific evening wear.
Well, as you know, I teach, and one of the things I teach is that sewing is sewing no matter whether it's garments or whether it's home sewing. And I do slipcovers as an exercise in garments for your furniture. So if someone can think of garments for their furniture, a slipcover is a lot less intimidating.
Oh, okay, that's a nice way. You know, he's the only person I know that does really wonderful stuff, and I've seen things in your studio, beautiful pieces of furniture, and I thought, he's the person to do the show. All right, now where do we begin? Because I don't know how to make the pattern or any of that.
Okay, well, we've started already with the chair. We find the center line on the chair by just measuring and using some pins to mark, and we use inexpensive muslin to generate the pattern.
So that's going to be like the center front on the body. I'm going to...
Exactly.
Okay.
And then we'll cut this on the fold when we actually cut the pattern out.
All right.
So, as you can see, we started here. I like to start with what's called the deck, or the seat.
Okay.
And you pay attention to where the pieces join, the seams, as it were.
Okay.
And you lay the pieces in. As you can see, I've done this here, and I've taken the permanent marker and drawn a line where the seams join the arm to the deck.
Now, are you pulling that fabric really tight?
You want it smooth. You don't want it really tight because you need a little wearing ease to get the slipcover over the piece of furniture later.
And you just cut a piece kind of bigger and then you give it a snip so it can fit down in there?
Exactly.
Okay.
So then I've started on the back, and see right here where the back joins the arm, there's another seam.
All right.
So we drape the fabric, and I've done some snips already to relax the fabric around this curve. And we take the permanent marker then and make a mark where we want the seam.
And just smooth, not pulling it real taut there.
Right. And at this point, we have a mark here, which I'm going to call B, and that joins with this mark here, B.
Oh, so what we're really doing is kind of creating little notches almost, so you know where the puzzle pieces fit together. That's very smart.
So then we continue, and we work all the way around the piece. I'm going to do the arm next.
All right.
And we take another piece of the muslin.
And you use muslin because it doesn't stretch.
And also it's inexpensive.
Expensive. Would you ever do something right on the, I mean, maybe that's a little optimistic, but would you ever take the fabric and go right to the chair?
Some people do that. That's for those who are not very faint of heart. I'm sort of scared. I like to have a pattern before I work with anything, because you can then, after you've draped all of these pieces, you can then machine baste the muslin together.
Oh, and see if it fits.
Yes. And that way you don't wreck your fashion fabric. You can
then actually, if you ever wanted to recover it again, I mean, it looks to me like the most difficult thing is kind of making the pattern, so then you'd have the pattern already.
Oh, exactly.
Okay.
My sister, actually, I did slipcovers for her, and they shrank in the cleaning. So I had the patterns, and I was able from San Francisco to make slipcovers for Oklahoma City.
Now, how many of you who know have a brother that would make slipcovers for you? I mean, that's a pretty loving thing to do.
Yeah, she's a cool sister.
Oh, isn't that neat?
And you notice,
brother too.
You notice also I'm doing things like writing front and up.
Oh.
And back and deck.
Because you may think you remember, but then when you actually get doing it,
it's true.
Okay.
And negotiating the arm here, we can cut this, and you can either do a pleat or a miter. This is where your dressmaking skills come in.
Oh, all right, okay. All right, so just come right in. I'm a little nervous about not pulling it taut. I keep thinking it's going to be all baggy looking on there.
Well, most slipcovers have a little bit of wearing ease
Okay.
because that's the look of a slipcover. If you want it tight, you get upholstery.
Okay.
Now, another thing I like to do is right about here, I'm going to mark this A, and also A here. That is where we add the tuck pocket, which I'll show you later.
Okay.
That is fabric that fits between these two joins here, so that when you sit down on the seat, it doesn't drag the back down.
Oh, all right.
That's something
okay.
we also add to the pattern.
Okay.
So it's, as you can see, we're working, this is front, this is the deck, we're working up, the arm here, this is another B.
And you're not worried about adding seam allowances to the thing now? I mean, clipping in. Yeah,
No.
I notice here that, you know, there's not much left there, so I'm thinking there wouldn't be much in the seam allowances to do.
No, we add the seam allowances later.
Now, are we going to sew this together, or are we going to sew something else together?
Well, we actually can sew this together.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be beautiful, it just has to fit.
Right. Well, that's why I asked about the seam allowance. It looks like there wouldn't be much there.
Yeah.
But we could add something to it.
Oh, yeah, you just stitch on
Zigzag.
some extra fabric there.
Okay. Because I can see if you were trying to have the seam allowance all the time, do you see then you couldn't clip in close and get such a nice fit?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and we're doing the seam where the back joins the back of the chair.
So every place there's a seam, then that's what you want to do. And let's pull the chair around a little bit here.
Okay.
So that we can see what's going on here. All right, so let's pull a little bit more.
Okay.
So this is where the seam goes in here, okay.
Right, and then we can do more matching notches. We can do C and C. Understand?
Okay.
So that
All
you know
right.
exactly where everything matches up when you're constructing the piece.
Okay, and this little thing doesn't bother you. That's
No,
going to be okay.
that's just loose.
All right. Well, now when we come back, we'll actually begin on the seat.
HGTV shows you the must-have accessories of the new millennium. Hot Design 2001. Wednesday night at 10 on HGTV.
I hear you've been doing a lot of bragging about that new hose of yours.
Maybe I have.
Well, unless you
We have
said...
Kenneth King, and he's showing us how to make a slipcover for a chair. And so we're just now making the pattern.
Yes. Actually, we're working on the seat cushion now because we got the other pieces earlier.
Okay.
And to get the shape of the cushion itself, this is what's called a T cushion because it's shaped like a T. You just take your permanent marker and you run a line right around where the piping joins. And it's rather quick and easy to do. And this gives you the shape you need. And you just continue all the way around, and I just do it by touch.
Is that upholstery lingo, the T cushion?
The T cushion, yes.
So now you can
As opposed to a
that.
T sandwich.
Okay. All right, so this is good. Now,
Yeah, so you get the
I notice
idea
you're
here.
not pulling it real tight. I keep worrying it's going to be all
Oh, no,
baggy.
it'll be fine. It'll be
Okay,
fine.
smooth it down, and it doesn't have to be real tight. Okay.
So once we generate this, we then want to take our tape measure and measure the circumference to get the strips, and
Okay.
also measure the distance between the two pipings. And that'll give you the depth.
Now the exact, not
Exact.
too small, not too big.
small, not too
Perfect.
big, just
okay.
right.
Seam to seam. So we're right where that seam joins.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
All
also,
right.
if you notice on the cushion, we have a join right here and the join correspondingly on the other side where the back zipper goes in. So they're actually constructed in two separate pieces in a slipcover
I see.
and just joined together when you construct.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we have our pieces cut right here,
Okay.
like so, in our
This
lovely
one, okay.
fabric.
So now do you work with 5/8 seam allowances or?
I like to I just cut an inch and trim it down with serging
Oh, okay. All right. So you're going to serge this whole thing?
afterwards.
Oh, after you're to sew it? Okay.
Yeah. So now what we have here, as you can see, are the pattern pieces. What we did first is we constructed by machine basting what we draped on the furniture to refine the fit.
Okay, one thing. Let's talk about this tucked pocket. I don't
Yes.
understand that exactly.
Okay, what's happening here, this is the arm.
Mm-hmm.
This right here, the dotted line, is where the arm joins the deck.
Oh, okay.
And
that
right
was-
here on the seat back, that's where the seat back joins the deck. And over here is where the deck joins the arm and the seat back.
Okay.
So what you want to do is add, this is a couple of inches extra, and when you construct, that will tuck down in between the cushions, between the arm and the back and the deck, so that when you sit down on the cushion, you won't drag the back of the...
Oh, okay, so the whole thing, okay.
Yes.
All right, I got
Then
you.
also, when you, after you've pushed it in there, you can take some foam rubber and push it in to hold everything in place. So
Okay.
it performs two functions.
Now, tell me, would you, after you take the pattern off of there, would you sew that one together?
No, we've refined the fit on the other one.
On
This
the
is
other
our
one, and then
finished
you
pattern.
made a whole new one. This is
Exactly.
because otherwise it would be all stretched and
Right.
everything. Okay.
So this here, these are the actual seam lines. If it's a solid line, it's a seam line. And as you
Okay.
notice, this C matches this C, this B matches this B, this A here matches this A here, and so forth. Because as you can see, these pieces are rather strange looking if you don't do this a
all right,
lot.
now tell me, I notice you're not too persnickety about 5/8 or 1 inch seam allowances. You're just going to cut it out, and then do you mark the actual seam line?
I do. The tracing wheel and tracing carbon.
Okay, because that way you get it really exact, because otherwise I can see that that's a problem. All right.
Right.
So that would be your next step. So I can see these are really, how do you mark these on printed fabric, like something like this?
Well, if you mark it on the back,
with a
you'll be
pencil
fine.
or something.
You can use a pencil, or I like artist color pencils because they're softer and they don't leave such a hard mark.
Okay, and then you work with your piping.
Yes, we make the piping, and then on a cushion like this, we would actually machine base the piping right onto the seam line all the way around and join it center back.
Okay, just kind of lead it out.
Right, and then after you've sewn on the top and the bottom, you sew the strips to each piece.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. Do you know, Kenneth, when it was in an upholstery factory, you know how they stuff these in? They have kind of a suction thing. It makes the cushion really small, then they stick it in there, and then it pops all off. It's so, because if you've tried to stuff one of these, it's kind of hard. Well, when we come back, we'll complete with this operation. Don't go away. Installing the slipcover when So Perfect returns.
Prepare for evil this month on Direct Ticket Pay-Per-View.
Today I have with me Kenneth King, and he is showing us how to make a pattern for a slipcover. Okay, Kenneth, now could you give us just a little bit of review what you did? Because I think for some of us this is a very new thing and we want to do it.
Okay, well, we started out by taking muslin to drape onto the piece of furniture to get the pattern shapes and marking the seam lines, marking where everything joins with letters, the directions, and labeling the pieces.
Okay.
From then, what we did was, in garments, what we would call a first muslin, where we actually sewed that together and checked the fit and refined wherever we needed it.
Okay.
And then made this pattern, which is what we showed in the last segment.
And how long does it take you to put the first one? You know, so many people, they don't want to make a muslin. They don't want to test the pattern because they want to have the garment right then. Well, what I'm thinking is I can just see people, well, I'll just make it out of the real fabric and I won't worry about that. How long does it take to put the muslin together? Let's say you want to put
Maybe 15, 20 minutes.
I mean, really, isn't that time well spent, you know, just to work out the kinks? All right.
So what we're seeing here, I talked earlier about the tuck pocket, and this is a really important thing. You can see where the two pieces go
Join, okay.
between the deck and the back.
Uh-huh.
Now, what'll happen if we pull this out here like this, and if we pull this up like so, this line here will actually join onto this line here.
So if this would be ordinarily where you would seam it, you see here and here, what Kenneth has done is he's added an extra 2 inches on each piece so it has the give.
Right.
So that consequently this whole back doesn't slide down and everything.
Right. When you sit on the deck, it won't pull down on the back.
Okay.
Also, another advantage to this is that once you tuck it in there, you can take foam rubber and tuck in there as well, and it keeps the slipcover in place.
Oh, okay. All right. So now if we take this off.
Okay.
Okay. And you know, remember, Kenneth mentioned one of the nice things about having this pattern now is that a couple years down the road, if you want to do it again, since all the work seems to be in making the pattern, you have it. And the fact that all these pieces are marked, you remember what you were doing, which one's up in the deck and everything, because you might remember now, but later on, a couple years from now, you have no idea what you're doing.
Exactly.
Now, this chair definitely needs imagination, because this is not one I would personally choose. I mean, it needs help. Do you agree?
I agree. It's only a chair only a mother could love.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. You know, this is the kind of thing you find sometimes at garage sales or in stores that you're tempted by, but you think, oh, you know, maybe it would look good, but it's going to be so expensive. Now you know how to do it yourself. All right, now let's see the slipcover now at this point.
Here we have it made up in fashion fabric.
All right.
And we have to find the front and back. There's the back.
Okay. So we pull that down. You know, Kenneth, I noticed that the seat on this one is in muslin. Is there something to do with that?
Well, this is
See right here?
when you're dealing with expensive fabric, you don't want to cover areas that the cushion is going to sit over.
Oh, I see. So there's really, yeah, that's right. There's no reason. All right. So you just kind of fiddle around with it till you make it look really nice. And I guess the thing is you want to check here and here before you start working this in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Actually, that looks... Now, is it okay with you if it's a little full there? That's okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, that's considered one of the good things about slipcovers.
Okay.
And as you notice here also, we decided to pipe around the arms to match the piping around the cushion.
Oh. Yeah, I think piping gives a nice clean finish. That looks good. All right. Great.
Here's our cushion.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
the final touch.
Oh, fabulous. Now, would you ever make two cushions?
I would, especially if you have pets.
Because you have a little dog,
I do.
and if that's the thing sometimes I see on a seat, that the thing that's really worn out and soiled is the cushion. So if you made two cushions, you know. Now, let's see, now you're just planning to throw this in the washing machine and the dryer.
Right, exactly. So you want to pre-shrink the fabric before you cut.
Okay. All right. So if you pre-shrink, so remember, cut it in pieces or else you're going to have problems with the washing machine and the dryer.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've got an idea from the pieces to begin. Well, this was really interesting. I am so glad. I mean, I think most of us are kind of anxious to try it. I mean, it's a lot easier than I thought.
It is.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I sure have, and we'll be right back with a viewer question. Back. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. I love the viewer question, and this one has, I was getting things ready, some bias strips. This one comes from Allison from Sarasota, Florida. I always have a hard time making spaghetti straps on dresses. Is there an easy way to make spaghetti straps look professional? Yes, there is, and I just learned it myself, and it's very cool because spaghetti straps can be very hard. All right, it comes there. This is a little turning device that I'm going to show you how to use, but I've cut some bias strips for starters, 1 1/4 inch.
Another example of textiles is this beautiful rug, and you'll notice all the colors, and if you look at it really closely, it's raised. And it's just a visual work of art as far as I'm concerned. Luckily for us, it was already mounted, which is what they do with a lot of rugs today. Antique dealers will do that. They'll take a rug, sew it to fabric, and stretch the fabric around a wooden frame, and that way you can hang it on the wall, so it'll last another couple hundred years.
Another way Robert was able to give the home a sense of age was with the color palette. Originally, everything in the house was painted white. So to give the home some personality, Robert chose turn-of-the-century colors to complement the early American decor.
We did the kitchen in a really nice mustard color because we just thought it gave a little bit of more life to it, yet it still would look old. We do a lot of museum tours. Deerfield, Massachusetts is one of our most favorite places to go. And we look at old houses. We take paint samples with us. Just take them into museum houses and say, it looks kind of like that. We'll take it home and we'll have it matched up.
Great. Let's talk about the stenciling, because the stenciling picks up, again, the colors of the palette of your textiles throughout the house, which is generally lots of goldens, lots of kind of muddy greens, if you will, and blues and reds. But your stencils are very simple.
We tried to make them subtle, but yet we wanted them to make a statement.
Right.
We wanted you to notice that there was a stencil on the wall.
I have to ask you right away, as you look around, it kind of feels that it's a museum, because as you look around, you really don't see any 21st century things.
I love the feeling of what we live with. It creates a picturesque view of maybe what life would have been like a couple hundred years ago, and I love the ambiance it creates.
There's so much eye candy, lot to see. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Next, we'll go upstairs to see how vintage clothing can be used as artwork to add personality to a home. And later in the show, you can express your own personality by making this one-of-a-kind lampshade. You've heard me say many times that a home should reflect the personality of the people who live there. And I think that you'll agree that the Ann Arbor, Michigan home that we've been touring is a great example of that. So let's rejoin Robert Strauss and see more of his home that I think has personality plus. So would you say, Robert, what I suspect is true, that this is the room where you spend a great deal of your time? This is your family room?
This is definitely the family room. This is probably the room, once we get home from work, that we spend the majority of our time.
It's evident throughout your house how much both you and Stephen love collecting. Your personal style really does come out.
It's fun collecting things. It's no fun to only have one of something. A friend of ours once told us you have to have at least 3 of something to have a collection. So we always start out with 3, and it always ends up to be a lot more than that, it seems. We collect old rag balls in muted colors. We collect heart objects. We have heart tins all over the kitchen. It helped fill up the wall space. We collect old china. We collect portraits. There's a young boy over here and another gentleman here, and it's kind of interesting because you can think of them sometimes as long-lost relatives.
I've got to ask you about the Robert S. Now, is that an antique, or is that something that somebody made for you?
That was an incredible Christmas present. It's an antique sled from around 1850, and it came from Vermont. And it actually belonged to a young boy who, in 1850, his name was Robert S. His name was mine.
Meant for you then, wasn't it?
Meant to be.
One of Robert and Stephen's prized possessions is a collection of old leather-bound books. They're used as accessories to decorate almost every room in the home. Their collection has grown so much over the past couple of years that Robert decided, well, he might as well turn one of the upstairs bedrooms into a library.
We had bought a desk and thought, well, the desk and the books, they would complement each other.
Yeah, I love the way they look, the different heights and the sizes. And it creates such interesting movement within the bookshelf. It looks like a piece of art, really, by itself.
Yep, that was exactly, I think, the idea we had in mind. We wanted to be visual. I love the colors. We love the colors of the books. We bought books that are all different colors, shapes, and sizes. We buy the books for the leather on the outside. We don't buy them for the text. But it's just kind of a showroom.
I think it's amazing that you have that desk set up, even with a glass of brandy, as though whoever lived or was just reading the newspaper had just suddenly stepped out of the room. And it's like that all the time, isn't it?
Right. We keep it that way just because it's like another one of those vignettes that we've chosen to put together. Because it's a look. It's something that reflects us, something that we like.
The simplicity of the master bedroom also makes you feel like you've stepped back in time. In fact, Robert actually sleeps on a rope bed.
Yep, rope beds in general, in the old days, they slept on horsehair mattresses. They were very, very uncomfortable. In modern days, you could rope a bed, throw a couple of pieces of plywood on it for support, and put a comfortable mattress on it, and they're not so bad.
Very primitive in many ways, very clean lines. Is that how you wanted the master room? What was the feeling you wanted?
The simpler, the better. We wanted that room to look like it was 200 years old. And 200 years ago, they wouldn't have had a lot of stuff in their bedrooms. Because lots of times, maybe the entire family would have slept in that one whole room.
Now, in the guest bedroom, again, you have another rope bed. And this is a very old bed, is it not?
Really. This came from Pennsylvania, and it's original blue paint. It's probably circa 1800. We bought it from some good dealer friends of ours from Pennsylvania. And Amy loves to sleep on that bed. It's a really cozy bed.
And tell me about the bed covers, because they're classic. They look like it's sort of men's clothing.
That's what it is. It's like old homespun fabrics, like men's clothing would have been made out of, or women's clothing, anyone's clothing, and they just put the colors together. We bought it because we love the mustards and the browns and the reds and the blues. It was just the colors that reflect our taste.
I like the fact that every room in the house has very simple tab curtains, which allow all of your collections to really stand out.
We were able to find a really wonderful seamstress here in town who was really good. We found old textiles like blankets, or we found an old tablecloth, and we just had her whip up some curtains for us.
Now, on the upstairs landing, you have a very dramatic shelf with textiles hanging on it.
They make a statement hanging on the wall there, because they would have been hung out so that they could just be taken off to put on a bed if somebody extra came for company or something like that. There's a man's nightshirt hanging on the wall, just like we would hang our clothes on the back of the door today.
It seems to me that you two really pay a great deal of attention to your arrangements and to your placements and vignettes within your home, because each one is a work of art. Do you tend to rework them often or ever?
We do. We take a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy figuring out which way something's going to look the best. We might move something, put it in place, and then step back and realize, well, no, that doesn't look good. Angles are all important. We try to optimize things, make things look the best they can from every angle.
Well, I think it's great that you two have been able to work together to create a personal style, and that you've been able to incorporate it into a house filled with wonderful and colorful antiques. And I thank you for sharing it with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
We'll be right back. Next, I'm going to show you how easily you can give personality to a lampshade by personalizing it with a monogram. So join me in my workshop. Sticky lampshade that actually comes with the form around it, the pattern around it. You just take the pattern off, find a fabric, and Michelle decorates it like crazy.
It's a piece of cake, Kitty, and you can use silk, you can use brocade, and today we're going to personalize our lampshade. You know, monograms are really hot right now, so today it's K for Kitty.
All right, I'm all for that.
Okay, as you said, the lampshade does come with a pattern, but I found through trial and error that it's a really good idea. Rather than follow your pattern carefully, I am tracing.
What about an inch? Or
I'm going to trace about an
inch
or a little, you know, give or take about an inch. And then I've cut out my fabric, which is a shantung, and now I'm going to monogram it. But before I monogram it, it's important to wrap your fabric around your shade. So,
you want help here?
Well, I found that this is a really easy way to do it.
Do you start with the seam? That's what I usually do.
Exactly. Start with the seam, and then I'm just going to kind of roll it around. And then you might need to trim it. You might need to readjust it to get it just right. Okay, but once you're ready to paint,
once you've stuck it down, then you're ready to do the monogram part.
That's the fun part, Kitty. And what I did was I spent minutes and minutes and minutes getting the right K. So I kept scribbling and scribbling and doodling and doodling. Then I took my perfect K to the copy center and I blew it up to get the right size and the right proportion, because I wanted to put the K inside this beautiful wreath, which is kind of ornate and very pretty. So I take my K and I'm going to cut around my paper using transfer paper and some tape. I'm taping my K into place.
Now, for anybody who's not familiar with transfer paper, it's essentially like carbon paper.
Exactly.
And this is the right side, this is the wrong side.
And I'm putting the right side down. And then I'm going to just carefully trace this. And you can use a pencil or a pen and give it, give it some pressure. And then once you've traced it, carefully remove this, and be careful. You don't want to smudge your carbon paper, your transfer paper onto your shade.
Look how great
And now
that
you
looks.
can see my K. Now I'm ready to paint. And basically, I'm using 3 different shades of metallic gold paint. It's acrylic.
You love metallic paint. You're the metallic paint queen.
Oh, thank you. I wish I had my tiara. Yeah, I love metallics. And I'm just going to carefully paint this. And what's important to do is alternate your gold. So if you have an antique gold, then put a lighter, brighter gold next to it. Think contrast. It makes your design a lot more interesting.
Now, for anybody who's intimidated by using a paintbrush, paint pens would work great for that as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they certainly would. That would be a quick and easy way to do this project. And then I'm just going to continue painting.
And of course, you're using metallic, but the idea, again, is to customize it. So whatever
you can customize this, and you can match your decor. You can personalize it and come up with all kinds of pretty shades.
Now, when you finish painting it, I noticed that you added trim along the top and along the bottom.
Exactly. I think it's a really nice designer touch to add some trim. And what's so good is let this dry. Once it's dry, then you come in. And if you notice, I have 2 different types of trim. I have some mandarin, this is called mandarin braid if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So I would apply my glue all the way around either my top or my bottom surface, wherever I start. And it's a good idea to start at the back. There's a seam. And then I'm just going to carefully lay my trim.
Do you recommend covering over the seam? or just around the top of the
Absolutely.
bottom?
I go all the way around, and I do cover my seam. I kind of butt my ends one against the other. Sometimes, you know, to hold this into place while you're gluing and your glue's still wet, clothespins would come in really handy. Once that's dry, then I'm going to repeat the same process and apply my gorgeous beaded trim.
I bet that costs more than the whole lampshade.
You are right. You are right. And you're going to win the lampshade just for that, Kitty.
Right.
So, and then I would just glue this around the bottom, on the edge, let it dry. And then what I did, because this has a black base on it, I glued this on top of it to camouflage the black. And that way it looks really pretty, and it matches the top as well.
Yeah, it's a great look, and I think that's really the point is save your old fabric, save your, if you're shortening a skirt, keep the extra fabric like you did over there on that very interesting silk lampshade.
Exactly. It's from an obie, an old obie.
So that's a great look. And then you've done one here with this wonderful sort of magenta and the little fabric roses. The point is that once you've got the base, which is so easy to work with, it comes with a pattern, go nuts and be creative and create your own custom lampshade, right, Michelle?
And you can save a lot of money doing this.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kitty.
We'll be back. Personality to the master bedroom in her home. Anne says, oh, the key is flexibility.
That's the one area probably in the house that I change more than anything else. And I like to change. I have a hanging that's over the bed on that bamboo pole, and I change that out, and I change the whole look of the bed so that I have a summer look, and I have, you know, a formal look, because I spend a lot of time in that room.
Right. Let's talk about how you attached that hanging behind you. It almost acts as sort of an additional headboard, if you will. And it's just bamboo that you've Velcroed on?
I have Velcro strip on that, and then I Velcro with the sticky back Velcro side to the textile that I'm putting. Some I wrap, but generally speaking, that they're Velcroed on and just hung in that hook.
Right.
It's a piece from the Alta Plana of Bolivia, and then I have an obi that I use also over the bed that corresponds with that.
And that's just, you use the bamboo there as well?
I use the bamboo rod, and then I wrap the obi. I don't hang it, you know, just from one thing. I wrap the obi over it.
So the look that you have now, you would consider more your formal look?
Yes.
And then again, for a third look?
For a third look, I do a summer look, which is all white and antique linens, and I hang scrim, simple scrim, over that bamboo rod again, and tie it with raffia ties, and drape a tablecloth that is an old drawn work tablecloth over the scrim at the top over the bamboo rod.
And also use interesting textiles to dress the bed and the guest room. But what caught my eye is this unusual headboard.
That is essentially a grain sled that we used on the thrashing room floor. And so it's kind of a natural color, comes from nature, and I seem to be drawn toward natural things. Fabrics, textiles, everything that I collect seems to have that textural element to it.
In the kitchen, it's the textures of the baskets that give this room personality, and the clever way she displayed them so close to the ceiling.
You know, it's an old colonial trick to hang them from the ceiling, and I thought we'd just bring it into a modern kind of rendition of that.
And let's describe how you've engineered it. Essentially, it's just a slat, if you will, of wood and with cup hooks.
It has cup hooks on it, and some of them whose handles were too wide to fit in the cup hooks, I just used monofilament, looped it around, and then put it onto the hook.
Great ideas. Thanks, Anne. I hope you enjoyed our show today, and remember to keep your eyes open for more decorating ideas that will help you
to make the most out of a limited space as we visit this New York City apartment that combines a dining room with a home office. Plus, creating a calming, comfortable home using a relaxed decorating style. And the charm and appeal of bunnies. They're hopping into many country homes to add a touch of whimsy.
It may look like I'm in a relaxing cottage somewhere in the country. Actually, I'm in a brownstone in New York City. Hi, I'm Mary Emmerling. Today, we'll discover how this country oasis was designed to provide the calming atmosphere many long for, but find difficult to achieve. But first, what do you get when you combine a love of sewing with a passion for bunnies? Adorable country accents that have become a labor of love for two sisters. Things are certainly hopping in this colorful Victorian-style home located in a small town outside of Seattle. That's because two sisters have turned their passion for rabbits into a budding business inside this home they call the Bloomsbury House. These handcrafted hairs add a touch of whimsy to a country decor, and just like teddy bears, seem to appeal to kids of all ages. I visited with creators Suzanne and Chris one afternoon to learn more about this business of bunnies. How did you all get in the bunny business?
I think it really stemmed back from our childhood. Our grandmother was a seamstress and made a lot of stuffed animals, and was involved with making dresses and working with fabrics. So it really came from our childhood.
Was it your idea to do the bunnies, or both of you together?
My idea. And I get her involved in everything I do.
Right.
So actually, our Graham helped us when we first started out. And yeah, my sister, she does all the things that I don't like to do.
And who makes the bunnies?
I make the bunnies, I do the designing, and Suzanne names them, gives them their personality, and brings them to life. In our bunnies here, we have one of a kinds. For instance, this one or the one behind you, where they're out of vintage fabrics. And I do prefer vintage. A lot of times new fabrics, I'll tea dye them. I start usually with the fabrics and designing the outfit, and I pick the body style that I like and dress it, and then just start adding to it. I usually always have to go back to the sewing machine and add more lace, more ribbons, rick-rack. I have bins full of treasures and lots of flowers. All my flowers are separated by color. If I can't find a flower to match, I have to make my own.
What makes bunnies a great collectible for a country home?
I think because it's nostalgic. You had it as a child. It brings back memories, and it just has that feel to it.
Well, how do you display the bunnies in a country home?
I like them in a vignette. So having two bunnies on an old bicycle or in a basket, or, this one has a little friend.
Here's a few other ideas for displaying. A whole bevy of bunnies are gathered atop an old vanity set against pastel painted walls to create a colorful display. Elsewhere, a procession of bunnies parade down a set of stairs. And if you have just one bunny, well, this little bunny seems to have forgotten what she's supposed to put in an Easter basket. So she substituted herself instead. So many cute bunnies just have to bring a smile, whether displaying bunnies in a country home or creating them.
It is fun. I mean, I don't work. I play all day. And
your grandmother must be so proud of you.
She is. She still makes things, and she just saw me yesterday, came down to give me some advice.
Advice that Suzanne and Chris have taken to heart in designing and embellishing their bunnies in this fairy tale cottage. A white picket fence framing a house invokes the feeling of a happy country home. Carrie Brown and John Werner elaborated on the old-fashioned favorite and fenced in their bedroom in their home in the wine country of Sonoma County, California. The sun seems to always shine on this couple as the same happy yellow rays dance across the walls of this small room.
Our bedroom is a bedroom. There isn't room for anything but the bed, and he incorporated our reading lights into the fence, which is our headboard, and it all fits, and it does transport us. We're above the grapes and floating. It is our sanctuary.
Function with a playful twist dictated the style of this sanctuary. The inspiration for the headboard came from a wildly colorful picket fence surrounding an old ride at Coney Island. Because this room is small, only 2 colors were used on this headboard, resulting in a matchstick-like appearance. This headboard with a purpose definitely gives Carrie and John the space for books and favorite collectibles. The queen-size bed is elevated by drawers. These offer much-needed storage space and bring the bed to a level where Carrie and John can look out the window at the vineyards. And as their California habitat transitions from season to season, so too will the coverings on the bed.
I think what's
most fun to do in a small little tiny bedroom like ours is to have a wardrobe of comforters or blankets that can be changed throughout the seasons. So for example, now, autumn, I have a bright red plaid wool blanket, and in the spring and summer I have different pale yellow chenilles and butter yellow sheets. So I think it's a great canvas to express the seasons.
A clever way to exaggerate the space in a room is through various sizes of furnishings and accessories.
The torchère was a present that I found for Carrie that was so out of scale for the room that it became appropriate. And knowing how Carrie likes that kind of playfulness, I was convinced it would work in the space.
Sometimes the oversize is the right size. You never know until you try.
Right.
Very true. You really never know how a room will come together until you experiment with different items in various shapes and sizes. The key is to define what the space is intended to be for when completed. Then let the design be dictated by function. This cheery bedroom brims with happy colors and sentimental treasures, artfully decorated with a good morning in mind.
Coming up next on Country at Home, see how a professional home stylist carved out a relaxed country corner in her busy New York City.
Such is the case inside this New York City brownstone, where an apartment has been skillfully designed to accommodate these two facets of life. Professional home stylist Wanda Furman turned her home into a livable country cocoon. What's emerged here is a soothing environment topped off with practical influences.
Moving to the city, first of all, was a big transition for me, coming from a small town. And living in the middle of New York City, to me, was a real challenge in finding a space that I could make feel comfortable. And I think I achieved it here.
What's the reaction of your friends that come over?
I think, the reaction is it's really funny. Sometimes people come over and they actually come to New York City to have a rest.
Right.
And they come from other countries, and a lot of my friends come here to relax. And I say, well, you're in the middle of New York City, but it's almost like coming to a little country inn.
When guests enter this country home, they may feel like tossing their hat on a slip-covered chair and putting their feet up on this rustic blue coffee table.
It's a 6-foot-long, about 3 feet wide table, and very Western in feeling. And I had the legs cut because I really wanted a large table, and I could not find a coffee table, a new coffee table that really fit the space properly.
Wanda based her furniture selections on need, but she still artfully achieved a gracious living space. For example, this dining table was once used as a desk, but in small New York quarters, it can perfectly function as a dining table. And for seating, vintage green high-back chairs frame the table without taking up precious space. To make this apartment truly feel like a country home, Wanda relied on layers and textures. Natural elements like wicker and sisal bring depth and definition to the living room. The collection of English plates adds some sophistication to the home, and to warm up the windows, a soft fabric treatment crowns French doors streaming with light. This is a relaxing environment capped off with practical everyday furnishings. For much-needed storage, Wanda turned to an armoire and pine cabinet. She also designed a bookcase to line a wall. Filled with books, this useful bookcase adds a finishing touch to this part of the room. For Wanda, the secret to small space storage relies on disguises and secretive hiding places.
The table behind my couch has a wonderful quilt on it, and then under the quilt, you don't want to lift that quilt. I've got lots of goodies under there and lots of projects that I'm working on.
In keeping with this practical philosophy, Wanda uses an antique drop-leaf table as a writing desk. To complement the living room, she considered the placement of this working sanctuary by angling the desk.
Angling something gives it a little warmth and movement and feeling to it rather than everything just being straight on. And I also think it works better into the room, and I can see what's going on rather than facing a wall.
A cushioned wicker chair and turned wood lamp encourage a comfortable working environment. To store useful clutter, Wanda stacked the table with baskets, a knife box, sugar jar, and an old mug to neatly hold stationery and supplies. Old covered English baskets underneath the table serve as storage for files and workbooks. Above the desk, Wanda hung an old window frame. A mirror placed inside the panes helps create an illusion that enlarges this space and is a favorite spot for mementos. The country lifestyle is flourishing in this Big Apple brownstone under the guise of 2 hats. In this neutral setting, you can put on your thinking cap to focus on work projects or just let your hair down to relax after a busy day.
Here's an idea for creating country from Country Sampler Decorating Ideas magazine.
One of the hottest looks in country today includes weathered and worn furnishings. This vintage country look takes us back in time, focusing on simple, well-loved primitive pieces. But if you can't afford the price tags on those antiques you see in stores and at country shows, why not transform inexpensive store-bought pieces and create your own weathered country furnishings? Country Sampler's creative director, Carol Shala, says it's easier to do than you think.
Well, the transformation is made with old weathered beadboard or picket fence pieces, which are very country. And they give these tables personality, a country personality that they wouldn't otherwise have, and also make them one-of-a-kind pieces for your country home.
Carol says she's picked up cheap scrap wood at flea markets, salvage stores, and even curbside on garbage day. Using salvage wood, she's given country personality to 2 inexpensive store-bought tables in her own home, including her bedroom.
We chose an unfinished piece. It's a little bedside cabinet that has 3 drawers and a cabinet door on it. And it was unfinished, and it was unassembled, and very inexpensive. And we put it all together and whitewashed the piece just to give it kind of a whitewashed country appearance. Then we found these weathered picket fence pieces, and I only needed probably 4 of them, and we cut them down to exactly match the size of the door on the piece and the drawers. So basically you're not getting into any kind of fancy woodworking at all. They're just straight cuts. You're using the shape of the drawer and the door as your outline for where you're putting the wood.
In the guest bedroom, green and white chipped beadboard was added to a new and inexpensive 2-drawer table to create a country transformation. Carol used headless nails that disappeared in the beadboard, but wood glue can also be used. And Carol adds one final step for safety's sake.
Well, one thing you'd want to do, because in old things, you know, whether it be the beadboard we're collecting or picket fences or even old furniture you're buying at the flea market, they can have lead paint on them. So it's always best to take these pieces you found and lightly sand off the excess paint chips that might be on there and then seal it with a polyurethane sealant. This will stop the paint from chipping off and protect you just in case you have pets or children in the house.
This country transformation is a great idea for creating country in any room.
Coming up next on Country at Home, living in tight quarters, a New York City design expert shares ideas for creating 2 rooms out of 1.
One way at a home in New York.
In Manhattan, space is often at a premium. In fact, having a dining room devoted to an occasional dinner party would be a luxury for some. For others, the luxury would be a space for a home office. Well, we ran across one New Yorker who came up with a pretty good solution, making 2 rooms out of 1.
By day, design expert and magazine contributor Tricia Foley can be seen working from her home, setting up shop in her 125-year-old brownstone in Manhattan. The center of activity usually takes place in the middle of her dining room, right at the table. Then, by night, the location stays the same, but Tricia transforms her workspace back to its original purpose for dining and entertaining.
This space is great. It's both an office and a dining room. During the day, I have all of my files and paperwork and fabric swatches and everything out that are involved in this line of work. And then at night, I just put things away behind screens, behind covered doors, and use the dimmer lights, and it turns into a great dining room.
With living space at a premium in New York, having a room just for an office didn't make sense to Tricia. Plus, a dining room just for entertaining also seemed like a luxury. That's when Tricia got the idea to make the most of what she had. To do this, Tricia added plenty of storage. First, with an antique piece that is a dining wardrobe for stemware, candlesticks, china, and linens. Then, to match the design of the antique, Tricia had built-ins constructed to handle the job-related necessities. And the dining table and chairs work for either purpose, work or pleasure.
I have a large dining table with leaves that can be extended to a conference table or used for a small desk area, and I have side tables that I use for buffets for parties, as well as storage equipment for computers and printers and scanners and all the other things we use in our work here. And I actually have a set of 4 linen upholstered chairs. They were found at a yard sale and I had them upholstered. And then I have a couple of end chairs that I use, and I pull in other chairs from the rest of the apartment when I have larger dinner parties. I think it's fine to mix different chairs.
Besides the dining table and chairs, there are other dual-purpose items in this room. The fireplace mantel also takes on 2 roles.
During the day, I sometimes use it for presentations. The photographs go away, and we have design boards and things that are used on the mantel. It's like a ledge in a conference room. And then at night, I usually have candles lit, and it takes on a totally different look. This folding screen is actually great in a space like this because it can be used as a backdrop for presentations. We pin tear sheets and inspiration pieces and fabrics and things to it. It can be used to hide all the computers when I have a dinner party. Right now, it's being used to screen off an area with a lot of project files and things like that. So it moves around, it's very light, and it has 6 panels, and it can hide a lot.
Tricia says whether you live in the Big Apple or not, turning your dining space into a home office may be a solution if you want to work at home but don't think you have the room. She also says it's important to consider your needs.
I think you have to be very organized. I think that if you have as much storage as I do behind these closed doors, it makes it much easier to put things away and have them ready when you need them.
Working at your dining room table definitely has advantages and offers a few surprises.
I think people are really surprised when they come in through the doorway on the avenue in New York and come upstairs and walk through these big mahogany doors and find the space with the chandelier and the fireplace inside when they expect to be going to a typical office. And they're usually pleasantly surprised.
You know, Tricia had plenty of good ideas there. A big part of country style is using things in new ways, like an armoire to store work materials or the fireplace mantel as a presentation stand. Take a look around your own home, and I'm sure you'll find plenty of items that could be twice as useful with a little imagination.
Coming up next on Country at Home. In need of a small side table? What about using what you're sitting on? Plus, do you have...
This chair is not only decorative, but practical. Set next to a comfortable chair, it is a clever place to hold magazines. Now it's time to find out the answer to our country surprise. Earlier, we asked you if you knew the purpose of this quirky collectible. It's a mustache cup. These decorative cups were popular during the Victorian period, from about 1850 to 1900, when a large, flowing mustache was in style. The extra ledge of porcelain held the hair out of the liquid and kept the mustache wax from melting as a man was sipping his beverage. That's going to do it for today's show.
Think this cute could come from such humble beginnings? Well, it can, and we're going to show you how to make this and lots of other creative ideas just ahead. We'll show you how to make a clever jewelry holder using copper nails and wire. Plus, a fanciful organizer to help you keep your correspondence in order. And simple, creative design ideas using stones. Decorating can be expensive, but the good news is it doesn't always have to be. That's why we're here. We have some quick and affordable ways to throw together some beautiful accessories in no time, and this is a terrific example. This is a lampshade made out of metallic fabric. It is really easy to put together, and it really creates an elegant effect. Here's all you do. First, you want to start off with a lamp that maybe you just don't like the shade anymore. So if it has a paper covering, just simply peel back the paper and take a look at the frame that you're going to be working with. In this case, ours is cylindrical. So what we've done is measure the diameter and the length and cut our fabric to size. Now what we've done is just double the thickness of our pattern. We just decided to do this that way you don't see the frame and you don't see the actual light bulb itself. You want to only see the beautiful light that it casts. So this way it's a little bit thicker. Then you form your circle And along the edge, you just make a hand stitch. If you don't have a sewing machine, don't worry about it. Use your hands. It's that easy. It'll take you really no time at all. Turn it inside out. Now you just flip your fabric right over the frame, and we made ours a little bit longer than the actual frame because we just wanted to make it, kind of bunch it up a little bit, give it a really nice look. And that's it. You throw in a low wattage light bulb and you're through. It's a terrific way to give your old lamp a brand new look. You know, if you want to make something like that lampshade, you don't need to be the world's most talented craftsperson. But what you do need is to be creative. Put on that creative cap and just look at the things you already have around you in a different light. San Francisco artist Robin Pope loves to do just that. And today she joins us with some terrific ideas for accessories for your home.
I love bringing the outdoors inside, especially using things from a garden, such as fencing, ironwork, statuary pieces are especially sweet, vintage things that will add charm to the inside of your house. I'm a landscape designer, and I love having part of nature inside.
Robin, today you brought along this really adorable towel rack for the kitchen. What made you come up with the idea?
Well, like a lot of people, I don't have enough space in my kitchen, so I decided to build something out of scrap wood and fencing materials to hang tea towels.
What a terrific idea. So the materials are pretty easy to find. It's just scrap wood, basically.
Very easy to find. You can even go to a lumber yard and have them cut the pieces of fencing for you.
Oh, terrific. How long do you think it'll take us to put it together?
I'd say about 35, 45 minutes.
That's it, really?
Yeah.
All right, let's get started then.
Okay.
Robin starts this project with some old pickets that she got from a salvage yard for just a few dollars. She pre-cut the pickets into 2-foot lengths. Then she says to line them up any way you like. And to avoid splitting the wood, she presets 3 finishing nails into each. A piece of scrap wood that's been cut to size will be the backing for the towel holder. Robin sets the pickets onto the wood, spacing them evenly, then nails them in. She attaches 2 more pickets to the sides, making sure they're flush with the back. Then a small piece of scrap wood that's been pre-drilled is attached to the bottom with screws. This will act as a shelf for spices or any other kitchen necessities. For the towels to hang, she attaches a small picket to the front with finishing nails. Now with the shelf complete, she wants to add some color to the natural wood. She chose yellow here and brushes on a light coat so you can still see the texture of the wood. Once the paint is dry, she screws 2 eye hooks to the back so it can hang on any wall. Then the last step is to simply adorn it with a decorative doorknob. And when she's finished, fence pickets are transformed into a unique tea towel holder. It's a perfect place for your decorative towels and spices while adding a little bit of rustic charm to any kitchen. A stylish way to make your cooking space a little more convenient.
Robin, this really was a cinch to pull together, and it is adorable. Now, I know we're going to put ours in the kitchen, but give us some other ideas of another room in the house maybe that would look just as good.
I think you could also use it in a bathroom and maybe hang a mirror from here.
That's a cute idea.
And little drinking glasses here.
Or toiletries?
Yes.
You mean make the shelf a little bit wider, because right now I don't know if it would fit some other things.
Right, a little wider would be great.
Good
and
idea.
Also, you could also hang hand towels there in the bathroom.
Okay. Any other ideas for changing up the look? I mean, we painted this yellow, but what else do you have?
I think you could also leave it natural and maybe put a light stain on it. That would look great.
Okay, terrific. Now, we're not going to let you go just yet, though, because we want to see what else you have for us right after the break.
Thank you.
Don't go away. We'll show you how terracotta...
You really can find that the results are very surprising, like this jewelry holder. This is just made from an old piece of scrap wood, some copper wire, and some copper nails. It is so easy to put together. Here's all you do. First, you want to get a piece of scrap wood, or we've used wainscoting right here. The texture just gives it a little bit more character, but if you have some scrap wood in the garage, go ahead and use that. Now, you can paint it or stain it, whatever you like. We decided to paint ours white to match our decor. And then it's just time to have some fun. Now we've just taken our wire and we've just twisted it into essentially the stem of our flower. We've made some petals right here, attached our copper nails just with a hammer, and you can actually do whatever design you want. Here we are doing a flower, so of course every flower needs a flower pot. So we've taken these little terracotta pots. If you don't have them, you can get them in a hardware store for $1 a piece. And now you're just going to take a hacksaw and just saw it right down the middle. And to be honest, that's probably the longest part of this whole process. Have a little patience and just saw it right in half. Now you just add a little bit of household glue right here at the edge. You glue it on, and that's it. The fun part comes next because you get to add all of your beautiful jewelry. Terrific way to showcase it. Now in this case, we've actually decided to make our jewelry kind of form our petals. See how it outlines all of these little nails? It's such a simple but yet elegant touch to a little girl's room maybe. It's a terrific accessory when they're playing dress up. A nice project that you really can pull together in no time. As we just showed you, that project didn't really take a whole lot of skill. It did take a lot of imagination though. Now earlier, San Francisco artist Robin Pope showed us how to take some old pickets and turn them into an adorable towel rack for the kitchen. Well, she is back with us now to share another fantastic idea that's going to really enhance your home.
I like to use salvage things to enhance my home, using vintage pieces and using them not in the same context as they were used before. It makes me feel clever and kind of adds great sense of style and funkiness to my house. So that's probably why I like using old things.
Robin, now you've brought along this very clever letterbox that is essentially a catch-all for all of the important items you might have on your desk, right?
Right.
Where did you come up with this idea?
Well, I used a window and an old drawer, and I decided to use it for my incoming and outgoing mail and to keep my keys. So I keep it on a hall table, and everything's readily available.
Very important. Got to stay organized around the house. How long do you think it'll take us to make?
It should take us about an hour.
Okay, that's not bad. Let's do it.
Okay.
Robin begins this project with a small window and a drawer that she picked up at a salvage yard for about $15. First, she cleans both pieces using a damp rag. When the frame is clean, she brightens it up with a light wash of white paint. For the next step, she uses 2 pieces of pre-cut scrap wood. These strips match the width of the frame but are cut a little bit longer so that there's a place to attach the drawer. She sets the window onto the drawer, lines up the strips along the edges, and using pre-drilled holes, she attaches them to the window and the drawer. Next, a wooden divider is added to create 2 separate compartments, one for incoming and outgoing mail. She puts glue along the inside of the drawer and the divider is set in. Now, for hanging keys, standard cup hooks are screwed onto each side of the window. And finally, for a decorative touch, she adds a brass cutout to the front of the drawer. And that's it. When Robin is all through, a small window and a drawer become a decorative organizational tool. The window adds an open-air feel to the piece, and the individual compartments help sort your mail. It's a creative way to stay organized while adding a unique touch to your home.
Robin, this is a terrific way to utilize 2 old things that somebody might ordinarily toss away. Nice work.
Thank you.
Give us some other ideas for using it besides on your desktop.
Well, something charming you may do is put little pots of flowers in here on trays to catch the water.
Good idea.
And another way to use this would be to keep all your gardening tools in here.
So put it out in the shed.
On a potting shed.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Robin, for being here and sharing all of these great ideas. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And don't go away with something that you think is just old and useless. Well, you can actually turn that into something new and different, but the key is jump-starting your imagination. So at this point in the show, we'd like to give you a couple of ideas on how to take one common item and turn it into a number of unique accessories for your home. You know, just because an object has outlasted its original purpose doesn't mean you should toss it away. In fact, craftsman Chad Cooper of Tongue and Groove Furniture in Laguna Beach, California, actually prefers working with salvaged materials. He joins us now to show us how an old cigar box can be turned into 2 unique items for your home.
I found the cigar boxes from a friend of mine who collected them. They're really easy to work with because generally they're made out of some nice exotic wood like mahogany or teak, and it's a shame to throw them away. And since they're so well constructed, you almost should make them into something else. You know, instead of using them as a box, you can turn them into anything, like a clock or a vanity or, you know, a lot of different items.
Chad, today you brought along this clock that's also a photo display. I love this idea. You're actually getting two projects in one. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea.
Well, Chris, I was trying to get as many ideas out of one project as I possibly could.
Okay, you definitely did it here. Tell me a little bit about the pieces.
Well, we have a cigar box, we have a clock mechanism, an old picture frame, a Lazy Susan, and some wooden balls from some fretwork, architectural pieces.
You just kind of threw it all together, huh?
That's it.
It looks like it is fairly easy. Is it actually?
This one you can make in about a half hour. It's really simple.
All right, I'm going to time you. We've got our clock here. Let's get ticking.
Let's do it.
Chad begins this project with a cigar box that he got from a friend, but you can buy wooden cigar boxes just like this at thrift or antique stores for just under $10. He sets a framed photo on top of the box and uses a pencil to trace its position. He drills a starter hole in each corner to make cutting easy and uses a jigsaw to cut out the space for the frame. After the hole is made, the frame is set in to check the fit. Now it's time to add the clock. The frame is removed, the box is turned over, and the clock face is set on. Once it's in place, Chad uses the hole in the middle as a guide and drills an opening for the mechanism. Chad bought standard clock parts from a hardware store for about $5. He opens the box, puts the device in, and screws it on. Next, the face is set on, the hands are added, a battery is put in, and the framed photo is set back in place. For the base, Chad uses a wood round that has a hole drilled in the center and a second, smaller round that has a dowel attached. He puts these pieces together to make a base that swivels. For legs, round wooden balls were painted, drilled, and a short dowel was attached. To add the legs to the base, he drills holes, adds a little glue, and sets them on. Before attaching the box to the base, two risers are added to the bottom, then the box is glued on. These risers lift the box, creating a space so that the lid can open and close. And when Chad is finished, what was once an old cigar box is now a distinctive clock and frame combination. The rotating stand allows the piece to turn freely to show the time or show off your loved ones. And the beautiful porcelain clock face stands out against the simple background. A great project that makes use of limited table space, and it can be made in just minutes. Chad, great job with this. And I know you always find beautiful, unique hardware that you bring along to enhance our project. So I'm sure you have something for this, right?
Well, Chris, I like to dress it up a little bit, and for this, I think a nice little iron finial would work well.
Beautiful.
You could put a little piece of wood underneath and layer it, make it sort of like a little widow's peak on a house. Or
Absolutely. It's very different looking. You're definitely not going to see an accessory like this in anyone else's house.
It's a one-of-a-kind.
And Chad, you actually brought along another idea using an old cigar box, right?
Right.
All right, let's see it.
Chris, this is a nice old box. It's really well made.
That's beautiful.
So I decided to make it into either a jewelry case or a makeup holder.
Terrific. I might take that home with me. It's so pretty. Tell me a little bit about how you made it.
Well, I took the inside and lined it with green felt. Then I added a mirror on a slight tilt, so when you open it up, it shoots up to your face.
Good idea.
Then change the sections off a little bit to maybe fit makeup brushes. Or
Bigger pieces of jewelry.
Exactly, bigger pieces of jewelry. Then on the bottom, I added some feet, which I made out of some stair banister, just cut up into little sections.
And I love, let's close this just so we can see. I love the handle and the hardware up front here. Did you find this as is, or did you put it, paint it copper? What did you do?
All the hardware is new. I added all the detail. The little flower up here, carrying case handle, and then added a little copper paint.
Wow, such a great idea. Chad, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of these terrific ideas. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
Imagination. Well, now at the end of the show, we like to give you some simple suggestions on how to take things that you either already have or that you can easily find and pull them together for a brand new look. Hey, take a look at these. They're just ordinary old stones. You have them in the garden, by the street, in a stream. They're so easy to find that I know you're thinking, they're not that exciting. What are we going to do with them? Well, we've come up with some wonderful design ideas for how to add a little flair to your home with these ordinary rocks. How about this idea? Using a stone as a place card for a dinner party. Now, usually when you have these intimate gatherings, you really want your guests to feel special. Well, why not make a special statement? Don't use regular, ordinary paper. Decorate a stone as we have done here. In this case, this was a dark colored stone. We just painted it red, added a little bit of a flower, the name in cursive. It's just such a nice personal touch. And of course, we tied in the red theme with our napkins, our glass, our flowers. Just such a beautiful touch. And how about this? For a more informal setting, we've taken some darker stones, and with a metallic pen that you can purchase at a hobby shop or a craft store, we've written the names just like that. And it is such a simple idea, but look at how the names pop against the dark stone. Here in gold, here in silver, and that's it. And the added bonus is if you have one of those outdoor gatherings, if you're using rocks, you don't have to worry about your place cards flying away. Or how about this idea, using ordinary rocks to enhance the centerpiece of your table? All we've done is just taken a large plain glass bowl, added some floating candles, and surrounded it with rocks and fresh flowers, leaves. These Gerber daisies really add so much color and really just show the contrast of these plain rocks. It kind of evokes a beach feeling, but of course you can change out the look of this. That's the beauty of it. You can forget about the water and instead add some fresh fruit, or if you really like the idea of a beach theme, throw in some sand from the beach, some shells. It really is amazing how something so common can create such an elegant look. And finally, here's a way to add a warm glow back into a non-working fireplace. All we've done is just taken large rocks and created, in essence, a screen for some large candles that we're placing right behind them. You can use rocks of all different shapes and sizes and colors. Just stack them up, place the candles right behind them. Now, of course, you can add candles or whatever color you'd like, but we chose just an off-white, a very simple look, kind of gives a medieval romantic feel. And we do have a safety note to make. If you have little ones, just be sure to put a wire screen right in front of the display. All in all, Mother Nature lends a stunning look to your home. Before we leave you today, let's take one last look at all of the projects we've shown you on how to take ordinary items and transform them into extraordinary accessories for your home. Well, that's our show for today. Here's hoping we've given you some great ideas to help you find the treasure maker inside of you. I'm Christine Pilara. We'll see you next time.
Interior designers to see how they integrate their ideas and tips into the spaces that they live in. New York designer Thomas Fleming designed his apartment to showcase all of his favorite belongings. Look up, look way up. Sloan Moran moved into a designer house with a kitchen that scales new heights. Industrial designer Kareem Rashid shows off his own signature household designs. And interior decorator Stephen Sabados helps us release our inner designer and discover our own personal style. Also, Peter Felico shows us at-home designs in action.
Our do-it-yourself project is both practical and decorative. And in our makeover segment, we'll see some innovative storage solutions in a condo bathroom.
Clients should really fill in that background.
Welcome to Thomas Fleming's world. This New York designer always makes sure that the client's home reflects their personality and not that of the designer.
Every now and then someone gives us a big compliment and say, oh, I was in someone's apartment last night and I just knew you did it. Well, that's about the worst thing we can hear, because we like to think that we don't have a stamp, that every Irvin and Fleming project looks different one from the other, or at least it looks as if it suits the people living there.
Thomas believes comfort is the most important aspect of any room, but he got a surprise while creating a dramatic dining room for a client.
I made the offhand comment that maybe what we were talking about was maybe just a bit too intimidating. And the wife turned to me and said, oh, I wouldn't mind intimidating some of our guests. Well, that really shocked me because it's just the opposite of what I think any interior should do. It should make people feel welcome at home, comfortable.
Thomas's design philosophies couldn't be better illustrated than in his own tiny New York apartment.
The first time I walked into this apartment, there was a closet where that bookcase is now behind me. And the closet had 3 doors with mirrored panels. And I said, whoever buys this apartment, if they don't need that closet space, they should take the closet away, take those doors and make a screen, put it down at the far left-hand end of the living room and reflect the 59th Street Bridge, which you will see is what I did. And I needed the bookshelf space more than the closet space. This room divides into 3 areas, you might say. Where we're sitting here in front of the fire, the most comfortable, commodious space in the room. The area down by the window, which is where, when I'm here on my own, I spend most of my time. The area that you pass through as you enter the room, which is very functional because there's a bar there and there's also a desk there. The desk doesn't get much use, to be honest with you, because if I am doing any sort of paperwork or whatever, I use the French wine tasting table down by the window where I have a nice view. My partner, Keith Irvin, and I have said for years that wallpaper holds up 50% of the walls in New York City. It also gives a depth to your background, something that you can't get with just flat paint. You can achieve this with a glazing style of painting, but that isn't what I was doing here, and the wallpaper serves the purpose very well for giving that depth. The background here is all pretty muted because I knew I was bringing over from my other apartment those Chinese red taffeta curtains, as well as this old rose chintz, which is something that I'm very fond of. We're very partial to chintz material. And one thing that I point out to clients is that oftentimes a chintz will have off colors in it. It gives you a wide palette, but not an overpowering palette. And I think that's one of the glories of chintz material. I suppose people would think that in a small space you should keep things pretty muted. But I don't think it's necessary, and I think this is maybe a pretty good example of it. There is strong color at the windows, and there is strong color at the opposite side of the space in that bookcase behind me. I think so long as you balance the color, you certainly don't have to stay away from doses of strong color. The pieces of furniture in this room I have collected over a period of probably almost 40 years. But it does all hold together. You shouldn't try to recreate yourself every 5 or 10 years is really what we're saying. It's very nice to look back and think, well, you know, I bought that 20 years ago when I was in London or I was in Hong Kong or wherever I was. And, I mean, this apartment is a very good example. Everything moved over from my last apartment, and very few things were recovered. This little bench, which I bought right off the truck from William Doyle many years ago, it's had lots of lives. Not always in front of a fireplace, but it just serves very well here now. And I think that'll be with me for the rest of my days.
When we return, a designer kitchen that goes up, down, and all around.
When decorating a small space, it's always a great idea to try to choose items that are both decorative and functional, which is what today's do-it-yourself project is all about. What I want to create is a serving tray that is great for serving items, but also quite lovely on its own as a decorative item. I'm creating a tray that measures 12 inches by 16 inches. I'm going to start with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood I've had cut at my Build-It Center, and I've also had a piece of mirror cut the same size of the plywood. The mirror, in fact, is going to be the surface of our serving platter. What I want to do is create a very simple frame around our plywood. And what I've chosen is a piece of 1/4 inch by 1.5 inch wood. And this is poplar, actually. And it comes in length. This is a 4-foot length. What you'll need to do is measure around your piece of plywood and cut 4 pieces to frame it up. We're just going to do a simple overlap joint, which is nice and easy. I've got my 4 pieces that I've cut. I've got 2 pieces that measure 16 inches. And I'm going to center these just along the edge here. We'll run a bead of glue, and just with some 1-inch finishing nails, we'll nail that in place. So I've used 3 nails along the edge there. I'm going to just flip my board over, and we'll repeat the same process on the opposite end. Again, be sure to sort of center your piece of framing material onto the plywood edge. So my 2 longest edges are complete. We're now ready to measure for the shorter edges, because we have to keep in mind that we have some framing material on there. So I'll measure that out. It's 12.5. I have my piece pre-cut, and that's going to be installed the same way. It'll overlap the 2 pieces we've put on there. So my framing material is all installed. At this point, I'd recommend using a bit of wood filler on the nail heads there and just sanding around your corners a little bit. Now I have a tray that I've worked on a little earlier where I've applied a very simple paint finish to. In this case, I just sprayed it in a black semi-gloss spray paint. We're now ready to add a few decorative handles on the end. And what I've selected is a handle that's installed from the outside, so you'd screw right through the front there. And I'm putting one on either end, and we're going to center it so that it drives through into the plywood. You don't want to go up too high because you'll go through your framing material. So you want to center that, and we're going to pre-drill through and use 2 screws to keep that in place. We're now ready to place the mirror. Remember, we cut the mirror the same size as the plywood, so that's going to drop in very easily. I'm going to use just a general adhesive. Just run a small bead along the surface here, and our mirror is just going to drop in place. I'm just applying just a little bit of pressure so that the mirror does contact with the plywood. I'll let that sit overnight, and that'll be all ready. So we've got a great serving platter that's both decorative and, more importantly, practical.
Now, it would be a real problem if you moved into a house and there was absolutely no floor space in the kitchen. But you could move everything up the walls all the way to the ceiling.
When we bought this house, we inherited the kitchen, and it was a big selling feature for us. I think that what really works in this space, although it's small, is that it's very dramatic. You have the really high cabinets that function well for a small kitchen because even though they're hard to access, you know, you have to pull the ladder around to reach the cupboards. It's great for storing things that you don't use all the time. I think in trying to make a smaller space feel larger, it's necessary not to have so many solid doors. Most of the cabinets are glass or totally open, and it really gives a sense of space, a feel of openness in the room. Also, I think the storage use has been really well utilized in this space. The pot rack helps, you know, not having to have big bulky pots and huge drawers really saves a lot of space. And when you have a lot of ceiling height, you can take advantage of all that empty airspace. In this kitchen, nothing was really scaled down. There aren't any small size appliances. In fact, most of the appliances are oversized. We have a large double sink, and I think it's hard if you cook a lot to work in a kitchen that doesn't have a large double bowl sink. I'm not much of a chef, but my husband loves to cook, and the stove was a major feature for him. It's got a beautiful grill, and also it has a hot plate on it, so the gas burners make a big difference with the double ovens. Again, we've got a huge stainless steel fridge, which is great, lots of food storage. I think the island really works because it allows us to have really large, deep drawers that can accommodate all sorts of things that you need to store in a kitchen. Also, underneath the island, we've got large baskets that can be pulled out and store things like salad spinners and bigger, bulkier items. I also love the open bookcase here because it allows us to bring in a lot of other multifunction things to the kitchen. We've got our stereo system, a television, cookbooks, and lots of our serving dishes.
So it's a wonderful feature both aesthetically and practically. So we get a lot of storage space into this kitchen. And plus it gives you a huge work area. When you're preparing food or having a dinner party, you can lay out all the plates. I find that now in designing homes for people, no one really wants the tiny little garbage bag that they hook onto the back of the door. It doesn't hold enough garbage. So with this garbage bin, it pulls out. You can put a full-size green garbage bag, and then there's also the recycling bin at the back. And it's just a really practical solution. The painting was found about a year after we'd been living in the house. And when I saw it, I knew it was just the perfect piece for this wall. You know, some people might go with a smaller collection of prints, but I wanted something really bold and dramatic that was going to balance out the room and make a big statement. I think it's important to keep in mind that you don't want your guests in your workspace. I think what's nice about having an island and bar stools is that people can talk to you, sit down, have a drink, but they also don't have to get in your way when you're trying to cook. Getting flexible with design and discovering your own personal style with Stephen Sabados when we return. The garbage can as a thing of beauty. Our next designer believes that both form and function can be really beautiful.
For a long time, I've had this idea of trying to create flexible furniture and furniture that can change and shift and reconfigure. And within that, also, I think I had other interests, which is this idea that if something can change and you kind of experience the change, you start to have a relationship with it. Meaning that the work or the product or the furniture or even the space grows an experiential attachment to you. So I can interpret. And there's nothing kind of better, I think, than allowing a creative process in your environment, in your being, that you participate. So if I have a table that can reconfigure in 16 different ways, which I've done many tables like this, then I would, if I reconfigure it, I'm kind of engaging in the process. And let's say the first time I reconfigured, I realized, wow, this is great, I could maybe do it this way. So then, you know, you start to build a kind of pleasurable, enjoyable experience with your inanimate objects. There's a coffee table that I did in 1988. It's made of 3 layers of glass. And the 3 layers of glass are different colors and different shapes. So they tend to interact with each other. And then I can take the top layer and put it on the bottom layer, and I can take the other one and put it in the center. And so if I reconfigure, not only does the table tend to change, but the coloration changes and the forms change. And I did a sofa bed about 4 years ago that actually has 12 configurations. And the O-chair is, the idea of the development originally was that I started cutting holes in it to allow the chair to have some flex. And if it flexed in a certain way, it'd be more comfortable. So that was the approach there. And at the same time, by cutting holes in it, I'm reducing some material, so I'm making it lighter. And I'm also reducing some material, so I'm making it cheaper. And onward and onward. I think all those accumulative efficiencies end up kind of with a good design at the end. If you take all the criteria and you kind of put it in a soup pot and you stir it around or something, and you mix it all, in other words, you address all the criteria, you end up with good design. So good design is not just visual or just form or just material. It's all the things involved.
If you live in a small space, sometimes your personal style jumps up and greets people at the door. Other times, you're kind of still looking for it. Stephen Sabados is here to tell us about finding your personal style. So, Stephen, how important is personal style in a small space?
Well, it's important because that's really what says your space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what makes your space different from everyone else's. So really, it is very important, but I wouldn't stress it in the fact that, you know, everyone has their own style.
Right. How do you find your personal style?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's just basically open your eyes and look around. You can find personal style, or find a style through magazines, through books, going through home shows and open houses, and really see how everyone else is living. Combine all these together and start to see what you're going to gravitate towards. If you're going to start, you know, liking a relaxed style, a formal style,
And that's how you can start to develop your own.
I thought I was the only person who ever went through other people's open houses. I love to go through and look at people's style. It's great. What if you share your small space with someone and he has, you know, another style?
Yeah, that could be eclectic living. And that is definitely a style in itself. Basically bringing all these different styles, say, you know, whether they be ethnic or anything, bring them all together into one space. The only thing with that is always try and find one common thread. And that's usually color.
Okay, now you have pictures for us of a very specific style.
Yeah, this you can see the designer has a strong sense of old world. And everything in that space is themed to that style. Everything has sort of stood the test of time, the walls, the moldings. And that, again, is a very, you can see it's a very strong sense of style.
Sure. I mean, there's not a whole lot of mixing and matching here.
No, it's all there. It's beautifully done.
Thanks, Stephen. The very best designer ideas that we can take away. And
Carl had finished making over his bathroom. Sure enough, he was back to work reinventing the space. Carl, do you ever stop working?
Well, as a designer, you've never really stopped thinking about how to improve spaces. And certainly, as a designer that lives in a small space, you never really stop thinking about how to maximize that space either. So I started off by defining a couple of areas for storage. And one of the areas that I have, which is more open concept storage, is the vintage sink, which has the rack underneath for towels to be stacked for guests, as well as a basket for toiletries, things like that. Further open storage was an old-fashioned looking train rack that's nickel-plated that looked attractive in the bathroom, but is a great place to hang my bathrobe, a towel, and again, more towels for guests. A stack of towels makes them ready available for visitors.
Now, you did select a piece of furniture for the bathroom, which is quite interesting. Tell us about that.
That's right. Bathrooms can look quite clinical. So I'm under the impression that if you can put a chair or a little armoire or cabinet or a table in a bathroom, it just warms up the space and helps to make it feel more like home. So what I did is I found a really great old armoire. Wasn't really in the best of shape. I had 6 inches taken off the back of it to make it slimmer so that it felt like a big piece of furniture in my little bathroom, but in actual fact, it's quite slim, and it holds everything inside that I need for storage in my bathroom.
Now, you've got some interesting molding that I know you put it in to help define the space. Tell us about that.
That's right. The bathroom itself is twice as tall as it is wide, so it's very, very tall, and I needed to bring the ceiling down to make the room feel a little more intimate. So I added a really wide crown molding at about 8.5 feet, and that really defines the space. It's painted white, so it's quite bright, but it matches the porcelains, like the sink and the toilet and the shower that's in the bathroom, and then painted a really strong color below, which is the vintage sort of robin egg blue color, which is a real direct color from the 40s, which again matches the vintage of the armoire as well as the sink and the toilet. I had a big hanging mirror, and I felt that it looked a little too traditional and kind of stodgy in the bathroom. So what I wanted to do is have something more fitted and clean, and again, add a sense of height to my new defined area.
So looking back at the previous look, which had a different feel, there were some smart ideas in there, but as usual, you're always managing to
It was once 3 tiny rooms, but Brian changed that. Walls were removed to accommodate an island, storage space, and a small seating area.
I wanted sort of a European country kitchen, but in the city. I didn't want it to be too rustic, but I wanted the rustic feeling because rustic always gives me the feeling of warmth.
Never one to shy away from color, Brian has used a rich blue-green color to accent a hutch in the kitchen.
That was a clean pine cabinet when I bought it, and I had it actually antique painted.
The island countertops and backsplash are covered in terracotta-colored tiles imported from Italy. Natural wood cabinets add to the light and airy feeling of the room, while a 1950s stove sits inside an arched niche along the back wall.
The only thing that is original in the kitchen is the stove came with it. And I wanted to create sort of an antique brick nook for the stove. So we took terracotta bricks, and then the guy antiqued the bricks with concrete, with a sponge and concrete, so that it would look antique like I liked.
The stove may get its share of attention, but the piece that gets the most comments in Brian's home is the French provincial cutting table. Eye-catching, yet practical.
That table was in a pub in Europe. So it has a lot of wear and tear, but I do actually use it.
A contractor filled the natural cracks and gaps in the pine floors with a black paste to accentuate their wide planks in color and to add to the rustic charm of the room.
He took a knife and carved, larger openings and then backfilled the planks.
Connected to the kitchen is the formal dining room, a space that came together, which adds depth and dimension to a flat surface. The painter added one more creative touch to the wall before
on the inside. We are at home with Jungle Jack Hanna, America's most beloved animal expert. Welcome to At Home with Jack Hanna. I'm Joy Philbin. Our guest today is America's most well-known wildlife expert. He's visited jungles, deserts, and forests all over the world in his effort to learn more about the animal kingdom. But when it came to his own habitat, he fell in love with northwestern Montana and its wildlife. That's the place he calls home.
This is why he moved to Montana. The girls now love the elk. These are elk. They're on an elk farm about 2 miles from where I live. These animals really represent what Montana and the Wild West is all about. The elk have been here for thousands of years. They provide a great food source for the Native Americans, as well as for mountain lions and those types of animals. So the elk is a symbol, really, of the West, I think.
Of course Jack Hanna would start with the animals. That's what drew him to Montana. But Jack Hanna's home is stunning as well. It's nestled on a cliff overlooking Flathead Lake, just outside Glacier National Park in Big Fork, Montana. The Hanna's home was designed to make the most of its surroundings. From the moment you reach the front gate, there's a sense of the animal lover inside. Friendly bears welcome you to Kasuju. Jack Hanna's home is named after his 3 daughters, Kathleen, Suzanne, and Julie.
You know, some people go home to, oh, God, I gotta go home. Oh, another day at home. You know, coming here is like going on a vacation every day you come here, and that's what I love about it.
While home is relaxing, work is pretty hectic. He's on the road almost 80% of the year, sharing his animal adventures with TV audiences. From the fish he raised in the family bathtub to the horses he rode on his family's farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, Jack Hanna has always surrounded himself with animals. His road to fame came later, but his dedication to wildlife never wavered. When he married Susie in 1968, they opened their own petting zoo. In 1978, he became the director of the Columbus Zoo in Columbus, Ohio. He gained national attention when he transformed it into a model facility. But it was his TV appearance as a guest on The Late Show with David Letterman that made Jack Hanna one of the most recognized wildlife experts in the country. Viewers enjoyed his enthusiasm and controlled chaos on the set. When his adventures are over, he heads to his Montana home, but finding it wasn't easy.
Kept looking and looking for almost 4 years. Kept driving around this lake all the time. Couldn't find anything that had a long enough waterfront. We come down this road and we saw this sign buried in the bushes that said for sale. And the realtor had been by here 3 times already with us. And Sue said, what's that sign? And he said, well, it's for sale, but you don't want it. No one's looked at it for 2 years. It's like a mountain. I mean, I'm talking straight down.
The property was considered undesirable because of its steep decline. But being the adventurous one, Jack spotted some animal trails and decided to follow them.
So you follow the deer trail. So I followed the deer trail down here, and then the deer trail ran across the lake here almost 650 feet. And so we could walk down through here just barely going through bushes. And I said, Sue, this is it. This is unbelievable.
So the Hannas bought the whole 6 acres in 1995. First, they built this small lakefront cabin.
Drew out this little cabin here, like 15 by 30 feet on a paper bag, gave it to a guy who'd never built a home, ever. I said, I'm going to go filming for 3 months in Africa. Build me a little cabin. Here's what I wanted when I came back, and this is what we have here, this little cabin 50 feet off the lake.
They named it the Treehouse. But after a few years, Jack and Susie realized they needed more room. But they never planned for the big house to be, well, quite so big. They originally designed the house to have 2 levels, but building a home on such a steep cliff forced them to change their plans.
The builder calls me up on a cell phone in the middle of Africa. He said, Jack, we've got a problem. He said, we dug the hole down here in the foundation, Looks like the house is going to be 5 stories tall on one end and 1 story on the other end. I said, just start building up, and when I get home in a month, we'll see what happens.
To support the multi-leveled structure, the contractors brought in steel columns, which made the neighbors wonder what was going on.
I was up here at the little old Bob's Market having breakfast, and the guy next to me goes, because I hadn't shaved and had a hat on, he goes, that's some guy, some TV animal guy, he's building a zoo down there on the side of the hill. I'm sitting there going, you know, just laughing at myself, because they all thought, oh, Jack Hanna was going to build a zoo here with all the steel framing of the house in concrete.
It took almost a year just to finish construction, but the spectacular 5-story home was well worth it. Jack gives all the credit to his wife, Susie.
Susie did the entire designing of the house. I didn't do anything because I don't ever want to build another house again as long as I ever live, ever. She does, but I never touch it. That's why I started losing my hair. I started shaking and getting my stomach upset, so I don't ever want to build another house.
Thankfully, this one is perfect for the Hanna clan, so no more worries, Jack. Once you step inside the front door, you immediately see the spectacular view of Flathead Lake. Every room in the nearly 10,000 square foot home has unparalleled views of the water.
We wanted windows where you just came in the house, when you first came in the door, you looked right at the lake. You know, people think they're in a ship.
It would be more like a cruise line from the size of this main living area. The pitch ceiling is 27 feet tall. The beautiful natural surroundings inspired the overall look of the home.
And just because of where we're located out west, I knew that we wanted a western feel to it, kind of tied in with a pioneer feel.
The Hannas call it a contemporary log home. It was built by local craftsmen and is filled with Montana artistry.
And I believe strongly in supporting local people wherever I am, wherever I'm living. And so a lot of log furniture was from here. The chandeliers were local. A lot of the bronzes were local. So it's just turned out well.
The chandeliers were made by a local Montana artisan who used white-tailed deer antlers. The exposed beams are larchwood and ponderosa pine and were cut and shaped by hand.
I like wood because it adds warmth to a room, and this floor is an Australian cypress. It has lots of personality because it has many, many knotholes.
The focal point of the living room is the fieldstone fireplace. The rocks come from a nearby quarry. The mantel is an unusual piece. It's made from a large juniper log. Its beauty was almost overlooked.
The guy who built the home, he and I went out one day because we didn't have a mantle. He said, let's just go to some place where they cut logs on a farm, you know. And so he looked around there and saw this log laying there. It looked like something you wouldn't even burn. He said, get that, Jack. I said, I'm not going to get that thing. I wouldn't even burn it. He said, I'm telling you, get it, because he's from here. So sure enough, we trimmed it, or took the bark off, put this sealer on it, and there you have our mantle.
Jack picked out the buckskin leather couches. They are beautiful and easy to maintain.
Our animals are an important part of our lives, and our English Mastiff and our Golden Retriever, they do like to sit on the couches. The English Mastiff, when he sits on the couch, he takes up the whole couch, and with the leather I can just wipe that off.
A child-size antique hardwood chair sits high on a shelf. Below it are 2 photos. These are Jack and Susie's most treasured possessions.
It's an old photograph of Jack's grandfather and Jack's uncle, who he was named after. And in that photograph, they're standing by a little chair, and we have that little chair.
You know how you just saw all those beautiful chandeliers made with antlers? Don't be concerned. They aren't there because of hunting. They're there because of recycling. I'll let Jack tell you about it.
Elk have antlers. They're not horns. A lot of the fixtures in my home, and as well as on the mantle, come from the deer and elk, because they shed them once a year and you go out and pick them up off the ground.
That's another reason why using antlers is so popular out west. Up next, a wish for a wood-burning stove comes true for Susie Hanna, and an unlikely place for a tub. It was inspired by the view.
HGTV takes you inside the country's most magnificent kitchens on Kitchen Designs. Friday night at 9 on HGTV.
Rex and the beige carpet.
Whatever comes in.
Oh,
New Resolve made just for steam machines gets it out, because now Resolve also comes in a new deep cleaning formula that's specifically made to use in all popular steam machines. Now, however big the problem, we've got you covered. Sooner or later, you'll need Resolve.
Last spring, I was taking lots of different medicines, so I took nothing for my allergies. It was a bad time. This year, an allergist gave me good news. Nasal Crom, he said. You can use it with anything. Because Nasal Crom works just in the sensitive part of your nose, not in your bloodstream. There's no risk of drug interaction. You mean I spent months feeling awful for no reason? Yes, Diane, he said. You did. Trust me, it'll work great.
Allergists know nothing works like Nasal Crom.
All I want is a room somewhere
far away from the cold night air,
with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
At Lazy Boy, we make rooms full of lovely furniture, including America's favorite recliner.
Wouldn't it be lovely?
America's largest and most elegant private home opens its doors to HGTV's Matt and Shari.
Take a look at this place.
It's room by room, built more estate style.
How do you decorate a home this huge?
Room by room, of course. Learn to use these colors, styles, and design motifs to create your own elegant surroundings. Get inspired. Join us for a very special room by room, built more estate style. Next Wednesday night at 10, only on HGTV, Home and Garden Television.
Welcome back. We're in Big Fork, Montana, at home with animal adventurer Jack Hanna and his wife Susie. Obviously, the Hannas love the outdoors, and they love to share their lakefront home with family and friends. In fact, their outdoor decks are their favorite places to entertain.
3 levels of wraparound decks grace the back side of the home. The Hannas are treated to the view of majestic mountain ranges that drop off dramatically into the edge of Flathead Lake.
We're outside people. This house has 3 decks. I think it's about 3,500 square feet on the decks, and we live on this top deck. It's my time of day where I go out there and I grill and I look at the sunset, and it's just beautiful.
When they do choose to eat indoors, there's plenty of room around this tremendous table. Jack wanted something big enough for everyone. Plus, the spectacular view can be seen from almost all sides. The table is one slab of a giant ponderosa pine log. It's one of many pieces of furniture made by a local woodworker who Jack discovered in a very unusual way.
I was in a shopping market here. We were living here for a couple of years in a little lake house, and I saw this chair in the back of a pickup. So I just stood out there and waited 15 minutes. A guy came out of the store. I said, "Is that your chair?" He goes, "Yeah, it's my chair." He goes, "You selling?" He said, "I'm trying to sell it." He said, "I've had a lot of hard luck lately." So I bought the chair, and I said, "I'll tell you what, I've always dreamed of a big table like in Tom Jones, where everybody sits at this big table, 14, 16 people, whatever. One piece of wood. Can you do that?" He said, "I'll do it." And he went out, and he cut this dead-standing ponderosa pine. It took 9 full-grown men, just to move the top of the table in this house. So this table ain't going anywhere.
The Hanna's friends often count the rings in the wood to guess the age of the log.
Several people have counted them, because we come up anywhere from 340 years to 390 years, rings in the table. And you can see, it's real interesting, because you can see when the years of drought, the years of a lot of water were from the rings and how they grew. So it's fun to see the table and talk about it.
The chair and bar stools were also crafted by the same woodworker. No two are alike. The chandelier that hangs above the dining room table is the largest in the home. It's made up of 48 white-tailed deer antlers. The table settings were actually Jack's doing.
Jack surprised me with the plates and the pottery that you see. It has an Indian pattern to it, almost an Aztec feel to the pottery.
While Susie was responsible for the home's basic design, all the fabric and most of the furniture was chosen by Jack, much to Susie's surprise and liking.
When I retire, I've often said I'll either go be a florist, or raise birds, little parakeets, or help design things like this. I have a flair. People may not think that. They think Jungle Jack, this guy runs around the animals all the time, but I do pretty good.
For more casual dining, there's a pine breakfast bar.
We wanted people to be able to talk when they were cooking with the guests, and the guests can sit at the bar and talk with the people in the kitchen, which works great.
The gourmet kitchen is a cook's dream. In addition to the modern cooktop, there's an old-fashioned wood-burning stove. It's always been Susie's dream to own a stove like this. Jack found it in an antique store and gave it to Susie for Christmas.
We had some friends that came up from southern Montana who grew up on wood-burning stoves, and they showed me how to work it properly with the vents. And
they cooked a pie in it.
Even taught me how to cook up apple pie in my wood-burning stove. So that was the highlight in my life.
Susie picked out copper hoods to give the kitchen a warm feel, but she was worried about clashing the copper with the chrome appliances and brass accents of the cabinet door handles. Once again, the answer was a Christmas gift found by Jack.
The fish sculpture that we have behind the stove really makes it come all together.
The kitchen cabinets are alder wood with a honey stain. They mix well with the green and black granite countertops. Above the kitchen is a loft where guests can stay. But one of the most interesting features is the freestanding tub. You would think this was an odd location for such a thing, but not for the Hannahs. It was actually a design solution.
The problem was where to put the bathtub. And if it had been put under the sloping ceiling, when you would stand up in the bathtub, you could have hit your head on the beam. So I thought, hey, what the heck? We're going to stick this bathtub out in the open, and you can see a view of the lake.
A beautiful and unique chandelier hangs in the loft. It was designed by the couple's favorite Montana artisan. It depicts a Native American scene.
Underneath the teepee, there's a drum, and that is done with stained glass. And Rock Corbett let me choose all the glass that he put in there. And the design of it, he has buffaloes, and then he has feathers and the Native American symbol for the frog.
There's a theme in the Hannah's decor, and that even extends to their dishes. When it comes to elegant dinner parties, Susie sets the table with a beautiful set of china decorated with an animal design. Susie fell in love with the jaguar pattern and hinted to Jack that it would look great in their Montana home. So Jack surprised her Christmas morning with a full set of china. Coming up, a gigantic bed built with the view in mind, and an open and airy master bath.
Some people will watch anything. But for everyone else, the Total Choice Platinum package from DirecTV gives you the ultimate in entertainment. 32 premium movie channels, over 25 great sports channels, plus over 100 general entertainment channels. When you stop spinning your wheels, order the Total Choice Platinum package from DirecTV and do your hamster a favor. Put his cage in front of the TV.
Every few years, the world's elite in women's ice hockey meet for their premier international event. And Canada always wins. Now it's tournament time again. Will Canada win it all? Or will the U.S., Finland, or someone else finally take home the gold? Oxygen takes you to the Women's World Ice Hockey Championships. Catch the semifinals Saturday, April 7th at 4 and 8:30, and the finals Sunday, April 8th at 7. See it on DirecTV, special channel 610.
Rex and the beige carpet. Now, whatever comes in. New Resolve made just for steam machines gets it out. Sooner or later, you'll need Resolve.
Change it because you want to. Make it shine. Yeah. Make a difference because you can. Because it's time. Change a little something or everything. Yeah, anything. Change your mind. Change it. Make a difference. Yeah, you're ready. Because it's time. Ask how, ask now. Ask Sherwin-Williams.
Save 20% and more on all your project needs right now at your Sherwin-Williams store.
Looking for a place where you can finally get away?
There's no place like home. The elegance of fine teak lets you escape right at home. Lane Venture, furniture for the special getaway you call home. Looking for the most elegant setting to entertain? There's no place like home. The quality and elegance of Weathermaster by Lane makes everyone comfortable. For the dealer nearest you, visit laneventure.com.
Need a better fitting swimsuit? Kindest Cut Swimwear. 80 flattering styles. From Land's End.
Welcome back to At Home with Jack Hanna. I'm Joy Philbin. We're in beautiful northwestern Montana, home to Glacier National Park and Flathead Lake, and also home to animal adventurer Jack Hanna and his family. After a long day of hiking, skiing, fishing, or wrangling animals, Jack Hanna and his wife Susie can kick back and relax in their master suite. It was built with a view in mind.
When they designed this master suite, Susie and Jack Hanna made sure that when they woke up every day, they could catch a glimpse of Mother Nature's finest. So no curtains blocked the view. Then, Jack designed a massive ponderosa pine bed that dominates the room.
People always ask, why is the bed so far up off the ground? The reason is because I want to be able to see all over the railing that's on the porch, to be able to see out in the lake. So when you're laying in bed, you just put your head up and you see right out in the lake.
Jack says the bed weighs so much that if they ever move, it's staying here. The colorful Native American pattern for the bedding was chosen by Jack to brighten up the room. Susie wanted a fireplace in the bedroom. This time, the surround is made of brown travertine marble.
I wanted it to coordinate with the bathroom because the bathroom is open.
3 different marbles are used in the master bath.
There's tumbled marble, and there's 2 colors. One is the brown travertine, and then one is the ivory color. And then on the floor, I chose a honed travertine, not a polished one, because then it's not very slippery.
When it came to the tub, once again, the view inspired the design.
And the one thing Susie always wanted was a tub she could sit in and have a beautiful view. And you look at that lake and that tub, and there's no other tub like it anywhere in the world that I know of.
Jack says the fireplaces aren't just beautiful, they are also practical and a wonderful way to heat the house. The winds coming off the lake can reach up to 80 miles an hour. So with the sub-zero temperatures of a mountain winter, they are very grateful for those moments by the fire. Up next, a visit to Jack's farm. It's time for the cows' daily feeding. Even the barns were a part of the Hanna's grand design scheme.
Yes, Lois Erickson is going to show us how to do cording and loops. Welcome to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betsina. Cording is not just for home dec projects. It can also be used to embellish a garment. And in my opinion, the person that is the best at cording is my guest, Lois Erickson. Welcome to the show, Lois.
Thank you so much.
She's done
Delighted
such
to be
beautiful
here.
things. Well, good. Well, now tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started and what you've been doing, because you're into a lot of things.
Well, I've been experimenting and sewing for probably longer than you are old. And I've written 14 books about sewing, and I have a line of patterns called Design and Sew, and just have a lot of contemporary designs that I add cording to, most of them.
How many patterns do you have now?
There's 25.
I mean, I had no idea you had that many. The cute vest that I have on is one of Lois's patterns. Now,
Yes.
What's this one called?
This one's called Apropos.
Oh,
and it has a little double collar and lots of cording on it.
It's such a nice job. Well, let's go over and look at some of Lois's work, and you'll see how this cording applies. Now, This is Lois's jacket. What is this pattern called?
This one's called Over and Under. It has a little jacket underneath, and you can wear it together as a unit, or you can just wear the outer vest by itself.
Great for cold weather. Now, let's look at the details on this.
Well, this has a lot of cording on it, and it combines nicely with the just the bias trim at the edge. If this was a cold day, you could just tuck this under, and you could be wrapped up in this. And it has little gold emblems that the cording slides through there, kind of like a bead almost.
Beautiful. And you know, what I have on also, this is another way that Lois uses cording. You've attached this by hand and then left a little slot so that the button can go through.
You want to make sure you tack it really good at each end of the buttonhole.
Right, so that means you're going to beeswax your thread. But you know, those of you that don't like to make buttonholes, this is real good.
Right.
Well, let's go over and show them how to actually make it. Come on over.
All right.
I guess the first thing we should talk about is how to make bias, because I think some people don't realize how to go about doing bias. So how do you do it?
Well, I usually just fold the selvage perpendicular to the side, and the resulting fold is the bias.
Okay.
Is that the way you do it?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I do it, too. I always think with these fancy rollers, there's probably some other way to do it. And also, then, I like this rotary cutter for things like this because it's easy to get real sharp edges. Now, how wide do you cut your strips?
Usually about 1.5 inches or 2 inches wide. I don't, I like to have a little extra so I can hold it easily when I'm at the sewing machine.
So you don't worry about it too much at this stage, about how wide it is, but you'd want it to be about 2 inches wide.
Right, right.
All right. So I would just cut this along here. And I think, you know, once you get using this, quilters, they love this because it can be real sharp. I think sometimes I don't use enough pressure. Okay, so now what happens next when we get all of these cut?
Well, you're going to, usually you have a lot of cording that you've purchased. You don't just buy one little piece, so you have many yards.
Right.
And to keep it from wasting it, I usually measure down the amount of the bias strip that I'm going to cover.
Okay.
And then on the second amount is where I start sewing. So eventually, after you sew this gets turned onto this front part.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question that people ask me all the time. Do you pre-shrink this cord?
I don't.
Me
Do
either.
you? Oh,
No.
okay.
But people are always asking me, and I always think maybe I should, but I've never pre-shrunk it either.
Well, I don't find the need to, but...
All right, so the next, you just wrap this around now. And bias is pretty important. That's another thing. Something like this would be an instance where I think bias is very important because you're doing all these curves and things.
Yes.
Sometimes you can get away with what I call well-off grain, but this is not one of them.
No.
All right.
So we
now,
just need to pin it on there to the cord.
All right.
And then we're going to just stitch that onto
well,
the
let's
cord.
take it over there and do it.
All right.
Okay. You know, I never really did much with cord until I met Lois, and it just opened up a whole new world. All right, now you told me that you have a little trick before I begin, and so to make it easier, because, you know, sometimes turning cord can be very difficult.
Well, it can be. What I do is, a lot of times, is to cut a little, when I start stitching, across the cord and down, instead of turning sharply at the corner, I create a little rounded space right there.
Okay.
So then when I start, the hard part to turn it is the start.
Right, where that
so once you're started, then it goes really quite
So this
easily.
is where we're going to hide the bolt, kind of. That's where it'll turn.
Right.
So I'm going to start sewing across the end of the cord, and then I'm going to make a little hole that's a little bit larger.
Yeah, you just want to make a little rounded space at the very end there.
All right, we'll get it going here. You know, sometimes when you start sewing on almost nothing, it doesn't want to start. Okay, now make a little rounded edge there. And now tell me, once I get past this little, okay, now I made a little fat spot.
Yeah, you don't want it
Now
too
how
fat.
close, yeah, now mine may be too fat. Am I close enough? Is my needle close enough, or should I be closer?
That looks like a
Because the question is, should I be as close as possible to the cord or not?
Well, you're going to be trimming this, and the trim part will fill in the space between the stitching and the cord, so that'll make a nice firm cording
So if I'm
space.
too close, I won't be able to turn it if I'm right smack against it.
It'll be more difficult, let's say. It isn't that you won't be able to turn it. It just might be more difficult.
All right, so then what's next? Now, let's just look at this for 1 second, though. I have a feeling, is my fat spot a little too fat?
A little too wide, yes.
Okay, so
yes.
you go back and fix that. Okay, all right. Okay, so
now you're going
what's
to
next?
now you're going to trim. You're going to trim away down to about 1/8 of an inch on your fabric, about like that. And then you are going to, when you get it all trimmed, you're going to just turn.
It looks to me like it's about half the width of the cording here.
Probably.
Okay.
And then you're just going to turn it onto, a little moisture sometimes helps. You're going to turn it onto the cord.
All right.
And
oh, I see that little spot does make it much easier to get started. You didn't have to fiddle all around. Now, one of the things that I've always found difficult is ending the cord.
Okay.
And what I noticed, yours always looks so nice, and I thought this is a great way to end it.
Right. Well,
You
that one
wrapped it.
is attaching, and this one would be like the end. So I folded this under.
Both ways, okay.
The way to do that now is just to take the cording and cut it off away from the end.
So how far back is the cording?
Oh, about 1 inch or so.
So the cording on here would be about 1 inch back. Okay, so I just have fabric.
Right. So then you're going to fold that in half, and then you're just going to take a couple of stitches with your needle.
Okay, let's try to keep it in one place so I can see it. I can't move that fast.
Okay.
All right.
I just leave my thread
All right, so
there.
just a couple spots.
And then I'm going to just wrap this as much as I can, as nice and tight as I can, until I wrap as much as I want to here.
And I've seen sometimes you do this in contrasting
Oh, sure. You can
thread.
You bet. You can have contrasting.
right,
you can
so-
make stripes. Then you're going to take a couple of stitches into the wrapping itself to fasten it, and that's it.
Well, very nice.
And
That
then you
looks
just cut
great.
this off.
Well, I think that's very professional looking. Well, when we come back, more tips with Lois.
I don't need a green thumb anymore because I fill my home with silk plants, silk trees, and silk flowers. To keep them beautiful, they need care, too. They need Silk and Splendor, the only product with a unique formula that cleans dust and dirt off, brings out the natural luster, and protects my plants by resisting dust. Spray on Silk and Splendor. That's it. No rinsing or wiping. Thumbs up for Silk and Splendor. Keep your silk florals beautiful year-round. Silk and Splendor is available at Michael's and other fine retailers.
If only your house could talk, what would it say?
A little house like me deserves a beautiful garden.
Even if you've never planted a seed before, come to Lowe's. Because we have certified nursery specialists who will help you choose the perfect plant from a selection you won't find anywhere else. And every plant we sell is guaranteed to last.
Just look at this garden. It's like I have a whole other room in the house.
Lowe's, improving home improvement.
Want a better garden? Get better water. Better yet, get a better plant. Proven winners plants are hand-selected, tested, and found to be more colorful and vigorous than other plants. So you get a more beautiful garden without all the hassle. Proven winners. A better garden starts with a better plant.
Given a choice between chocolate and shopping, most women would choose both. The JCPenney Sweet Sale, this Saturday only, unwrap a surprise 20, 25, or 30% savings. It's all inside. Indulge yourself. JCPenney.
All I want is a room somewhere
far away from the cold night air,
with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
At Lazy Boy, we make rooms full of lovely furniture, including America's favorite recliner.
Wouldn't it be lovely?
with me Lois Erickson today, and she's written 14 books, a very, very creative lady. And I was just looking at some of your cording closures and was wondering, where, Lois, do you find all these wonderful buttons? And some of them look like they might be beads. Do you go to bead stores too?
Bead stores, and I also find a lot of the buttons in antique shops. Sometimes I buy an old coat at a resale store, wherever.
They're really nice.
Yeah.
What we've been doing today is working on cording, and this is just an example of how Lois uses it. I mean, it's pretty incredible. But let's talk about some. I was looking at this after we wrapped this. I was wondering, now, what would you do with this little thing?
Well, you could do another attachment here and wrap another little segment, and then it would turn it into more like a ball button.
Perfect.
That you could use.
All right, so it doesn't always have to be a button. You create it out of beads.
You bet.
Okay.
And this also is a bead that has a little knot on the end.
Beautiful
to
knot.
hold it on, and a little wrapping in there as well.
And you always cover up your raw edges with the wrapping.
Well, yeah, you want your craftsmanship to be...
Now, I've been watching you now, and I think I'm starting to get it. Now, most people would just hang this thing in the seam and be done with it.
Right.
But Lois seems to do some interesting things, like you'd probably twirl it around and do some nice thing like that.
Sure, or it could have a knot. Also, speaking of a knot, it's kind of a nice way to turn a corner when you're applying it. If you tie just a single knot, it makes a nice little corner there. We could mention that.
Great idea. Okay. And what's this little guy?
Well, I've just done an overhand knot with a doubled cord there, and this is probably a button from a military uniform.
You know, I bet you have a book on knots that you sometimes look, because I notice
I do. Sometimes I look in there.
Now, this thing I would never have thought you could use for anything.
Well, this is a tube, a bone tube that has carving on it, and to keep it on to the tube, I've just applied these little rings there, some bone rings that kind of goes nicely with the bone
Sure
tube.
does. Very nice. All right, and then this was a real button, but it had kind of a large eye on the back.
Right, and you could apply several on there. So you could, as you're applying the cord to the fabric itself, attaching it.
Oh, you have another button.
You could have several of those.
Oh, I see. That's a good idea. So to put the strip on, the buttons go on the strip, and then you just attach the strip.
Right,
Great.
right.
Now, this next one, I think, is one of your all-time great ideas.
Yes, I was pretty happy with this idea.
Wait till you see this.
Sometimes you'll have a button that's large, or you want to create a stack of buttons where you have a button and maybe some beads on top. These are all glued together.
Okay.
And then you glue a snap on the back. You want to choose quite a large snap. And then you sew on the other part.
That's a number 4 snap. Oh, and then
you can just snap it on.
That's really
Now,
nice.
if I wanted to change my outfit, I could do that by undoing that and adding a different one, like that.
Oh, beautiful. Really, that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, that was fun.
Now, what is this?
Well, I've combined a technique that I call face shapes. That is, putting a facing on any kind of a shape and adding the cording to it. And the same button idea, that's the bead with the snap,
I love
would be
how this
applied
comes through. You know, it just makes you think you don't always have to have a straight jacket. You see, you've got an interesting shape there, and you filled it in with that. Nice.
Well, sometimes you'll have a button that has very large holes in it, like this. And when you just sew that on with a thread...
It looks terrible.
Yeah, it just looks a little wimpy. So you want to have something that would help to make that look more sturdy and more in keeping with the holes itself. So you can either put the cording in there and attach that to the fabric, or attach the cording and then tie a knot through the opening there.
I see. Good idea.
And on this one, there's a small piece of cord, and then the larger cord would make the opening for the buttonhole.
Lois, you are incredible. Beautiful ideas. When we come back, we have a few more. Buttonhole closures with cording when So Perfect returns.
If you want legs like this, get ready to order.
There are easy movements that you can do to tone your thighs, but the key to getting great sculpted legs is the sequence.
Get thin thighs guaranteed through this exclusive TV offer. Just pop it in and follow this proven sequence. In 8 minutes, you've done the definitive thigh trimming routine. The secret is sectional progression, targeting each key area in a precise order, guaranteed to trim your thighs.
I thought I'd never trim my outside thighs, but this tape did it. It really works.
I recommend it because it gets fast results and it's safe.
It's only $19.95. Call now and we'll also include the rest of the Beachbody collection, a $59 value for just $1. And if you don't get thin thighs, just send it back for a refund. It's guaranteed.
So have your credit card ready and call 1-800-946-7373. That's 1-800-946-7373.
Comfortable air. Quality home comfort systems from Lennox make your home a better place.
The secret's out. Do you know what's in most air fresheners? Look at this. Air freshener cover-ups are water, a lot of gas, and a little perfume. No wonder they don't work. But now, there's Citrus Magic Odor Eliminator. It's made with 100% citrus that dissolves odors. In the bathroom, the litter box, the kitchen, anywhere, leaving behind only a fresh citrus scent. Citrus Magic, the secret's out.
With Quickcrete fast-setting concrete, you just pour it in the hole and add water. It sets hard in minutes. After all, why do you think we call it Quickcrete?
That roach thinks he's got it made. A mere scamper to the pantry. Only this homeowner called 1-800-Terminex for a convenient solution to the problem within 24 hours. So this roach is toast. Call 1-800-Terminex for a free inspection.
Welcome back to So Perfect. I'm Sandra Betsina. Today with me I have Lois Erickson, who's written 14 different books, but 2 of them have sort of what we've been talking about, your more recent. Which ones are those?
The Great Put On is one, and the one that has the closures is called Opening and Closing.
Opening and Closing.
Right.
Well, now you had one, she has one closure that is not in any of her books, but all the rest are. Why don't you show us this one?
Well, this is a way of making a buttonhole type of opening without making a large buttonhole for a very large button. So this would be a way to do it, where you have an arch-shaped opening with combining with the cord, that when you slide this back over...
So it's like a little slot.
It's like a slot that fits underneath the shank of the button, and then you just tie that around the end.
And you know, I like
the
repeating of all of the top stitching and everything. That's just beautiful. All right, now how would someone go about making that?
Well, we have a sample right here. You first need to interface your garment side of your fabric, and then you're going to stitch down to within 3/4 of an inch from where you have marked this little oval.
Okay.
Then you're going to stitch the oval, and then you're going to start again 3/4 of an inch away from there.
Okay.
You might need that space bigger if your cording is really large, but that normally is a good amount. Then you're going to clip this opening and clip to the curve, and then when you turn it, you'll get a little shape that's finished like this.
Amazing. And you have to clip that real good or so it can turn nicely. And then here's the end right there where the cording comes out.
Right.
Boy, that's a nice treatment. I wanted to ask you about your jacket, because usually you float the cord on the outside, but you had done something a little different about this one.
Yes, well, I wanted it to be going in and out, so I just made some small machine-made buttonholes there at the openings, and then I just ran the cord in and out.
Are they through both sides of the collar or just through the top collar?
No, just the top part.
Just the top collar.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What's that jacket pattern? I haven't tried that one yet.
It's called Suit Yourself.
That's yours, called Suit Yourself. Now let's look at a couple of others. I would not have thought to do this, to have different colors there.
Well, it's kind of nice to have a little contrast, and on that other little board down there, you can kind of see as well. Maybe you want to bring that one over.
All right.
Because here there are several put together as well.
Oh, it's
and
nice.
So you can combine
and they're
whatever
different widths as well.
Yeah, I think it makes it a little more interesting.
Now, this one with the silver bead, though, you said that was just a bead.
Well, it's a round bead, and I've just flattened it to make it accommodate the cording and to kind of delineate the opening so you can kind of see where it belongs.
All right. I just wanted to show this one because I thought this was easy, and a lot of people, this could be a way you could begin with this one. Now, tell us about this.
Well, this is just your simple cording put into a seam. So this would be like the front opening on a jacket or a vest, and you just make your cord, tie a single knot, and put the two ends into the seam as you're putting the facing on. And this would be the same application, except you're putting a single knot, and you're going to tack that so you can that can accommodate the button, and it'll stay where it belongs.
Oh, Lois, these are beautiful. I mean, let's just slip this one last one in because I think this is very clever also. You can buy this, or did you dye this yourself, the cord?
No, you can buy cording. That's a commercial cord, and then you can just do many rows and tack them together. That makes your buttonhole.
It's beautiful. Well, Lois is going to show us a couple of other tricks, actually, one with a Chinese closure when we come back.
Topical information from this week's shows is available on our website at hgtv.com, or send $5 to So Perfect, Box 50970, Knoxville, Tennessee 37950. Be sure to include the week number on your envelope.
Feel like joint discomfort is tying you down? Don't give up your favorite pastimes. Get new Flexable brand glucosamine. It's like your body's own to help build cartilage that cushions your joints. Take charge of your aching joints naturally, safely with Flexable.
If only your house could talk, what would it say?
I may be an old house, but step into my kitchen and I'm 21st century.
Lowe's has over 250 brand name appliances, all in stock, all for prices that can't be beat, guaranteed. And only Lowe's will deliver them right to your home within 24 hours.
Whoever thought I'd have a kitchen with a brain?
Lowe's, improving home improvement.
All I want is a room somewhere
far away from the cold night air,
with one enormous chair. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely?
At Lazy Boy, we make rooms full of lovely furniture, including America's favorite recliner.
Wouldn't it be lovely?
Who changed the locks?
Try the bell.
Comfortable air. Quality home comfort systems from Lennox make your home a better place.
Here are the events for the week of April 2nd through April 8th.
Welcome back. Today with me I have Lois Erickson on the show, and she's done some wonderful things with her cording and closures. And then I just noticed this beautiful closure right on the neck of your blouse. It's fabulous. Could you show us how to do that?
Certainly. It's called a Chinese knot button, and I just haven't tightened it so it doesn't look like a button exactly.
Okay.
You're going to make a letter 6 with your cord, like this,
Okay,
a letter
this is the letter
6.
6. Okay.
And then you're going to take the end and slide it under the loop of the 6.
Okay.
Now I'm going to put this across the top of the tail of the 6, and I'm going to weave it across this part that looks like a pretzel. So we're going to go under there, over that one, under this one, and out the end.
And that's what that is.
And that's what that is. So I could choose my buttonhole to be any one of these loops.
And then you learned, Lois showed you how to finish the ends so by wrapping it with cord, so they looked really nice.
Now, if you were going to actually tighten this to make a button, you would tighten it from the sides and hanging onto the center, so you have a nice little, you can create a little ball there with that.
Okay, I see. I did that one time, actually, with something, this on one side and the loose one on the other. Now, we'll have a little review.
Okay.
Let's see. Now, the 6, we've got the 6, like that.
The tail is on the top.
And then, oh, the tail, okay. Let's see, we need the review. The tail's on the top. Okay, now I take this one, and I come around. Oh, I come around and turn it into a pretzel. All right.
Okay, there's the pretzel.
There's the pretzel. And now I come over. I did remember this part. I come over there,
and
under here.
Weave it across.
Weave it across. You know, it's funny. I have this written in one of my books, but I always have to refer to it when I do it. But I like the idea of the 6 because I think that makes it real easy. And then you just play around with it a little bit.
Sure, you can leave it quite flat, or you can make it more dimensional if you wish.
Nice, nice. Well, you know, Lois, if you had one thing to say about working with closures, what would you advise people?
Well, I don't think you can ever play too much. I think you have to really play a lot and experiment and just have fun with whatever you're doing.
And don't expect it to come out like right the first time.
No. And sometimes it's better if it doesn't.
Well, I've certainly loved having you on here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I always learn things. It's really, you're fabulous.
Thank you.
I know you've enjoyed it. I sure have. I always love shows with Lois. And I'll see you next time on So Perfect.
Inspired by family function, rewarded for beauty and design.
I'm experiencing something that I designed and designed successfully.
See who wins top honors in the Kitchen and Bath Design Awards from American Home Style and Gardening Magazine. Saturday afternoon at 5 Eastern, only on HGTV. With a little imagination and some help from Joan Steffand,
it is going to look fabulous.
The decorating dreams of these families come true.
Oh my goodness!
Pretty!
Decorating Sense, a Habitat housewarming. Saturday night at 8 on HGTV. Coming up next on HGTV Daytime, get great quilting tips and ideas with Alex Anderson and Simply Quilts.
Hi, I'm Alex Anderson. Don't you just love a good mystery? Searching for scraps of evidence and piecing them all together, then tying up the loose ends? Sounds like making a quilt. On today's Simply Quilts, we'll meet an author who writes quilt mysteries, and we'll get some clues for constructing a mysterious flock of our own. Whodunit quilts are coming up on today's Simply Quilts. Welcome to Simply Quilts. We're talking with the author of Mariner's Compass, the latest in a series of murder mysteries that center around quilt patterns. Joining me today is novelist Earlene Fowler. Earlene, welcome to Simply Quilts.
Well, thank you for having me, Alex.
How long have you been a writer?
For about 15 years now, since I was 27.
I noticed that all of your books have quilt pattern names, but you're not a quilter, are you?
Well, I started out quilting. I was taking a quilting class at the same time that I was taking a writing class. And I found out that I was a better writer than I was a quilter. So I stuck with the writing.
Not a quilter at all? It didn't even hook you?
Well, I do buy fabric. I have a stash of Western fabric and I continually to add to it. So maybe someday the quilting will bring me back.
If you have a stash of fabric, you can call yourself a quilter.
Okay.
It all just works together. You have a very wonderful parallel of a quilt being like a novel. Tell me about that.
Well, I discovered when I got to my third novel, because I had made a few quilts, that the whole thing of writing a novel and making a quilt had a lot the same aspects to it. For example, when you pick a pattern for a quilt, that's the first thing that most people do. Well, with a book, when you go to write a book, you have to decide who your audience is, just like you do when you make a quilt. You have to decide whether it's going to be a mystery audience or a literary audience or romance audience. And then the next thing you do is you pick your characters, which is a lot like, for quilters, picking their fabric, which with most quilters I know that's the funnest part of making a quilt, is picking the fabric. The best part, because you get to spend money, for one thing. But with authors, if you get a bunch of writers together, you'll find that they have a stash of characters, that we collect characters in the same way that quilters collect fabric. And you always have these characters that you know that is going to be in one of your books, and you don't always know which one it's going to be. Then the next step would be cutting out the pieces of your fabric and rearranging them for the pattern to make the pattern and sew them together. And with an author or writer, it's